we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed, and hello and welcome to the first in this new series of Just a Minute. The contestants in the game are going to try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them, and they will try and do this without hesitating, without repeating themselves, and without deviating from the subject in any way. In other words, no hesitation, no repetition, and no deviation. If one of the others thinks they are guilty of one of these crimes, they will press the buzzer in front of them, and if I uphold their challenge, I will award them a point, and they will take over the subject for the remaining seconds. And if I don't, then the person speaking then gains the point and carries on with the subject. Derek Nimmo, would you begin the first? And here is the subject to begin this new series: what to reply to, how do you do? Will you try and speak on that subject for just a minute, starting now?
I'd like to speak, if I may, for just a minute, on what to reply to when someone says, how do you do? But as a matter of fact, I always say, I'm very well, frightfully fit, in splendid condition, as a matter of fact. And I always then say, ha, 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 how are you, as well? Which is rather interesting thing to see. Sometimes, mind you, when I'm in Scotland, I don't. Now, that's interesting. If I'm in Scotland and someone says, how do you do? I say, Yerk Gleekit Gonald ye. Which tends to surprise people, even if they don't know what it means. Nor do I, of course, really. Now, if I'm in Spain, I say, muy bien, y usted? And that tends to surprise...
Andree Melly, you pressed your button. Why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Hesitation when?
In Spain.
I don't think he did hesitate in Spain.
After he said how do you do?
No. He didn't hesitate in Spain, so Derek Nimmo therefore gains a point, as I don't uphold Andree's challenge. He continues with the subject with 27 seconds left, starting now.
Well, thank you very much for letting me continue with the subject of how to reply to how do you do. I think it's terribly sporting of you, really. Now, I was going down the Strand just 3 moments ago when somebody came silently behind me and said, how do you do? And I thought...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. How could they come up silently and say, how do you do?
A very clever challenge. You see how clever they've got at the game. Kenneth Williams, I award you a point. You have 13 and a half seconds left for the subject of what to reply to how do you do, starting now.
I always say, I'm fine, thank you, which is...
Andree Melly, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition, because he says he always says it.
Yes, but you see, he hasn't actually repeated himself in this particular round of Just a Minute. What I think might be fair there, and I hope the audience will agree, is to award you a point for cleverness.
Yes, she is clever. I admit that.
But you, Kenneth, continue with the subject with 9 seconds left for what to reply to how do you do, starting now.
Which is ridiculous, because I really should not say that at all. I should say absolutely terrible, because that is how I feel most of the time. This is the... Thank you. Oh, that is wonderful.
I must explain one small rule to anybody who may not have heard the show before. Whoever is speaking when the whistle is blown gains an extra point. In this case, it was Kenneth Williams,
yes,
who at the end of that first round...
I'm in the lead.
Yes.
Yes.
Kenneth has a commanding lead of 2 over Clement Freud, who is yet to speak. Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
I was going to speak.
Clement, I've noticed, usually comes from behind like a dark horse and often takes the lead at the end. Andree Melly, will you begin the second round? The subject is on being a bridesmaid. Will you speak for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
There are certain rules and rituals about being a bridesmaid. The most important thing to know is that you must never look prettier than the bride, because it's her day. And if you happen to be more glamorous, she happens to choose the clothes that you're going to wear, so you may find yourself in a rather hideous shade of pink with something very nasty on your head. You get given a present by the bridegroom, and if you go in for being bridesmaid very often, you might collect a whole lot of powder compacts, and if you're a child, a collection of seedless... Ooh, what's called?
Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yeah, hesitation, indeed, yes. You don't need to hesitate about it, but it's quite definite. Derek Nimmo, you have the subject now. There are 28 seconds left. Will you try and talk for the next 28 seconds on being a bridesmaid, starting now?
I would like to speak on being a bridesmaid. I, too, always try not to look prettier than the bride. This, of course, as you will imagine, I find to be rather difficult. I tend to wear the paler shades of blue, perhaps in organdy or in slipper satin. And then I also wear rather lovely bouquets, usually of rosebuds, and there's little tiny rosebuds in pink or white, all strewn together, and a similar little grouping on my hands, a coronet. And I do find, as the other one...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was a definite hesitation, and there are only 2 seconds left for you to talk about being a bridesmaid starting now.
I have very little difficulty.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. No, just a minute, Derek Nimmo challenged. Why?
Well, deviation. He hasn't spoken about the bridesmaid yet. and if he's only got 2 seconds, he won't have time.
Derek, I think you're being very clever to try and get in with 1 second. Again, an extra bonus point, but I must not uphold your challenge. Clement Freud has another point. He has 2 seconds left for being a bridesmaid starting now.
Oh, to be a bridesmaid now, but...
The actual buzzer went before the whistle, and it was Andree Melly who challenged. Why did you challenge, Andree?
Because it's deviation. He's married, so it'd have to be a maid of honor.
You are being very clever. The subject is on being a bridesmaid. If you had had him for repeating the word bridesmaid, I would
Is
have
it owed to be a
given you point.
bridesmaid?
No. I'm afraid all that's happened is Clement Freud has another point. So Clement Freud has taken the lead at the end of that round, and he has only 1 point in front of the others. But Clement, will you begin the next round? And the subject is things I would abolish. And you begin now.
The things that I would abolish above all else are house names. Many is the time that I've gone down a street to look for more repos, or even somebody else's repos, and been utterly unable to find it. The nice thing about an organized and orderly society is that you can go into a street and know that somebody lives at number 52. Goodness knows house numbers are pretty... So.
Andree Melly, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation indeed. Andree, will you take up the subject with 33 seconds left? Things I would abolish starting now.
The first thing I would abolish is Clement...
Clement Freud has challenged you.
It's the plural.
She said
things.
the first thing.
Yes, it's things.
Yes, but
Group-
the first
group
thing... Yes, well, she said the first thing, so that's the first of many things that she would abolish. So,
Always on Earth, Sunlight.
Andree Melly, you have another point. You have 31 seconds for things I would abolish starting now.
Is Clement Freud's right thumb, which is so fast on his particular buzzer that he gets all the points before I can get my hand on mine at all.
Clement Freud, you challenge.
A hesitation, a definite hesitation.
No, she didn't hesitate. Andree, you have 23 seconds left.
We're leaving.
Kenneth Williams and Clement Freud would like to leave. I'm afraid you cannot be excused now. You should have done it before you came on the program. Andree Melly has a point. She has 23 seconds left for things I would abolish starting now.
The second thing is the subjects that Clement Freud has as they're particularly difficult
Clement
to
Freud,
talk
you
about.
challenge. Why?
Repetition of Clement Freud.
Yes, indeed. And we don't want too much repetition of Clement Freud. So he gains a point on his own name, and he has 19 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
Head transplants and all other transplants I would also abolish because...
Derek Nimmo, why do you...
Repetition of transplants.
Head transplant. Yes, all other transplants. That is a repetition. Derek Nimmo, you have the subject. 14 seconds. Things I would abolish starting now.
I would like to abolish pylons that one sees striding across the countryside in tremendous ugliness. They would be relegated underground.
Kenneth Williams, you challenge.
There's deviation. Pylons cannot stride.
You are keeping very silent, Kenneth, and coming up with these gems of wisdom and deep thought.
Yes.
And so you gained yourself a point with 7 seconds for things I would abolish starting now.
I would abolish all the iron grills. I don't like iron grills, and it suggests that we're all
Clement
locked
Freud,
up.
you've challenged. Why?
2 iron grills.
Too many iron grills, yes. In spite of all of them want to be abolished. Right, 3 seconds for you, Clement, on the subject starting now.
Lady hockey players would be high...
Always one game.
As Clement Freud was speaking, as the whistle went, he gains yet another point, which gives him a small lead over Andree Melly, and Derek Nimmo and Kenneth Williams are trailing just behind. Kenneth Williams, it is your turn to begin. would you like to speak on who I would most like to be other than myself? Have a little think about it. Your face has taken on a very strange hue. Anyway, would you talk on that subject starting now?
It's a peculiarly difficult subject for me to grapple with because, as I am in all senses the things I like being, it's an almost impossible thing because it presupposes there is something somewhere better than I.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Well, he's just talking about himself, isn't he? Rather
You give
greedy.
people a chance to get underway. I wasn't even underway.
I don't know what you want under your way, really, Kenneth. What sense do you think it was devious? Would you be a bit more explicit, Derek?
Well, because he was talking about himself rather than things that he would rather be than himself.
Yes, I quite agree. So, Derek
Oh,
Nimmo,
so
I award you a
clever.
point. 45 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
Cyril Smith is a very fine fellow who lives in 14 North Street, Wigan. I've always wanted to be Cyril Smith rather than myself.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
To Cyril Smith, repetition.
Yes, indeed there were. So, in losing the subject, Kenneth, you very soon get it back with another point. So, you have 36 seconds left for who I would most like to be, other than myself, starting now.
Well, I suppose one of the people I would like to have been would have been Nerva, because when that man found all the gold under his house, he went to Nerva and he said to him, what shall I do with
Clement
all
Freud, why do you challenge?
Too nervous.
Yes, there were two nervous, I'm afraid,
well,
Kenneth.
They
you
were too
really-
nervous because I'm nervous. That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was a
But you
marvellous...
can keep that sort of brilliance to yourself, I think. But I think you were really underway that time, weren't you, Kenneth?
Yeah.
33 seconds left for Clement Freud on this subject, starting now.
I'm not at all proud, and I would like to be an awful lot of people like John Smith, Henry Jones, William Rush.
Andree Melly, why do you challenge?
A deviation because the subject was the person.
No, the subject is who I would most like to
Who?
be.
Well, that's
Yes, singular.
singular.
No?
Yes, but he could have a number of people he would like to be. It's a very difficult... I know, I can't decide on this one. I'm going to put it to the audience, a lovely-looking audience.
Well, they always boo.
We'll see, some of them blow raspberries sometimes, which is very embarrassing. We could all spray up here. Ladies and gentlemen of our audience, if you agree with Andree Melly's challenge, will you please cheer? If you disagree with her challenge, will you please boo? And will you please all do it together now? I decide the boos have it. So Clement Freud has a point, and he's gained a point. He has 21 seconds left for who I would most like to be other than myself, starting now.
The editor of the Daily Telegraph is a man I would very much like to be because his job is secure and he takes on people and sacks them and sends me letters saying, "My dear Clement Freud," which he writes in blue pencil.
Andree Melly, why do you challenge?
Deviation is talking about letters he's writing and instead of the person.
No, I think he's still on the subject of the who. I think that's a very good try, but no. Clement Freud has another point. He has 7 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
He is also handsome to a fault, generous to the point where I don't have to send in expenses but just get large checks.
Well, Clement Freud's person that he would most like to be gave him a very definite lead. In fact, he's almost twice as many points as the other three, who are all equal in second place. Derek Nimmo, try and redress the balance as you begin the next round. And here is the subject. The perfect friend, starting now.
Well, you know, everybody should have a chum. I do think that's terribly important in this lonely age in which we live today. I mean, it's no good all this wandering lonely as a cloud amongst hosts of golden daffodils. You need a friend. And who would I rather have more than anybody else in the whole wide world as my very own personal friend, Kenneth Williams. He seems to me... He, like the manager of the Daily Telegraph, is handsome to a fault. He is generous, kind, extremely gay, funny, and amusing. He's always the life and soul of every party. Every time you see him, you're sort of filled with admiration of that scintillating personality. He is the person, ladies and gentlemen, who I would like to have as my comrade through life. I would like to be able to clasp him to my bosom every Sunday morning at 4:30. I would take him bunches of daffodils and tulips. I would take him raspberries and macaroni and spaghetti and all sorts of something.
Andree Melly's challenge. I didn't really want to stop you, Derek. I was enjoying it
So was
much.
I. I was terribly
goodness
carried away.
me.
wasn't it? A very
You can
emotional
see he's a
moment for me.
frustrated, dramatic actor, really. But Andree Melly challenged. Why do you challenge, Andree?
Because I caught another daffodils and we'd had the ones...
Utter nonsense. We all loved it so much.
Course
We're
we
going
did.
straight
Yeah.
back to Derek. You can keep your daffodils and
Make it up
we'll
to a bunch.
make it up to a bunch, says Clement Freud. And 7 minutes for Derek to...
Minutes?
It shows you how much I was enjoying it. We could have gone on. The audience only want another 7 seconds of Derek Nimmo. For the perfect friend, please begin now.
How nice to be able to go down to Margate on a Whit Monday with this fellow, roll up one's trousers and paddle into the deep blue sea, stride along the pebbles and buy candy floss, put on little straw hats with
We award a point to Derek Nimmo for getting the subject back. We award him a point for speaking when the whistle went, and 1 bunch of daffodils for a marvellous performance. And so we go on to the next subject. And Andree Melly, it is your turn. And keeping the theme going, the next subject is the perfect idiot. Would you try and speak on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
The perfect idiot is my dearly loved husband, who pretends to be absolutely moronic about anything practical or mechanical. This means that I have to fix all the fuses and change the wheels on the motor cars, but on the other hand, he, while I'm doing this...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
boasting, saying she's got motor cars.
You get a nice laugh, a nice round of applause, but all that happens is Andree gets another point, because it's not one of the rules of the game. Andree, you have 43 seconds for the perfect idiot starting now.
And while I'm doing this, he tells me what a wonderful, clever, practical, genius wife he's got, which is very nice for any woman. He finds it difficult to even open a tin of marmalade. And when... Ooh.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Hesitation, yes, you have a point, and you have 30 seconds left for the subject of the perfect idiot starting now.
In my opinion, the perfect idiot is Kenneth Williams. Nothing can I imagine more than rushing round the northern
Just a
coast
minute,
of
before
Scotland.
you start, before you get going again, Clement Freud challenged you right on the start. Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
It's already been established that Kenneth Williams... Clement,
you see, the thing is, to be utterly fair within the game, your perfect friend could also be a perfect idiot.
Have you heard
the word
idiotic
perfect.
friends, haven't you?
The word
oh, my
perfect.
idiotic friends, you say.
Just a moment, Derek. What were you
right.
saying, Clement?
I was going to say the word perfect precludes messing about with...
No, you can. I still think, to be quite fair, you can be the perfect idiot and the perfect friend. And Derek Nimmo, I therefore decide, has another point, and he has 26 seconds left for the perfect idiot starting now.
And out there with this idiotic fellow I stride, with my gun at the ready, and the grouse laugh, they hoot with laughter when they see him, because you see, he is such an extraordinarily funny fellow. And
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Well, you don't see grouse hooting.
You don't see them laughing either, do you?
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So, Kenneth Williams, the perfect idiot. I'm sorry, no. The perfect subject. Kenneth, will you take it up, the perfect idiot, with 17 seconds left, starting now?
Well, this is a very curious title indeed, because perfection implies something, and of course idiot implies something quite other. But however, if we're to take the thing at its face value, I would say the perfect idiot is generally represented by bigotry. Bigotry represents to me the most idiotic...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
A double bigotry.
Yes, I'm afraid there was. We were getting very interested in this intense discussion on the perfect idiot. But Clement Freud has another point. He has 8 seconds left for the perfect idiot starting now.
The perfect idiot is one who has achieved perfection in lunacy, therefore a man of great talent.
Until Clement Freud gained those last 2 points, Derek Nimmo, with his perfect performance, had crept up into equal place. He's now a little behind Clement, who's still in the lead, and Andree and Kenneth are still equal in 3rd place. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My school days. 60 seconds, don't write it down, or if you want to, you should have done it by now, starting now.
my school days were a long...
You challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, repetition. It was too, wasn't fair, was it? All right, Clement Freud, you have another point. 55 seconds for my school day starting now.
My school days finished quite recently. They were the most happy days of my life. And I went to a succession of schools, all of which...
Andree Melly, why do you challenge?
Repetition, because there was succession.
A succession of schools. Andree Melly, you have a point, and you have 48 seconds for my school day starting now.
Mine began when I was 3 and I went to a kindergarten school called Camelot. There were 4 houses and I belonged to Tristram, which I didn't understand what that meant at all. My greatest enemy was a girl called Ruth Roberts, who used to pull my hair. And we sat at those small desks, which 2 people sit at the same time, and they have little squares where you had to put the alphabet. And if someone doesn't challenge me, so look at that!
Derek Nimmo is challenged.
Gallantly.
Gallantly.
A gallant challenge.
A gallant
on
challenge.
the grounds that she packed up.
She packed up. All right, Derek, you have a point. You have 27 seconds left for my school days starting now.
My school days were singularly happy. I remember my school motto was ex hoc metallo virtutum, which means out of this quarry comes virtue. And if you look at me, you will be able to see that I lived up to the motto.
Clement Freud.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. Clement, there are 15 seconds for my school day starting now.
On my cap, we had a badge which said Hinc in Altiora.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
No, he's talking about his sartorial attire, not his school days.
Oh,
On
but
his
I
cap.
think your sartorial attire is so much part of your school days, it's inseparable. I definitely uphold, I mean, I'm not again with your
We
challenge.
actually went to the same school. No, no.
Yes, you see, they don't realise that they both went to the same school.
You and Clement Freud went to the same
No,
school?
Clement
There's a
Freud and
tremendous,
Nicholas Parsons did.
there's a tremendous gasp or pause or shock in the audience. We're trying to get across to you that Clement Freud and Nicholas Parsons went to the same school.
Oh, I never
That's
thought
why
that.
Clement Freud...
That's why he always wins.
That's why he always wins, because Nicholas Parsons is frightened of him.
And we hated each other. So there we are. It was St. Paul's School, in case you're thinking of sending your children there, or keeping them away, as the case may be. And there are 11 seconds left for my school days, Clement Freud, starting now.
And this meant from here to higher things, which was the singularly apposite thing.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitate. I mean, deviation, just mumbling. He's just mumbling away. He's not talking about his
I will
cats,
give
not
you
about anything.
hesitation. Don't try.
On to
If you
higher
press your
things.
point too hard, you might lose it.
No.
There are 5 seconds left for my school days, Derek, starting now.
Miss Lane was my first mistress. What a lovely lady.
Clement Freud got his challenge in first. What was it?
Corruption.
I think it
Or
was
deviation. I mean, loosely under the heading of deviation.
I think we're all I think he said the challenge should be envy. We all went to the wrong school.
And
Clement,
also the chance of repetition.
don't make it any more involved. You'll have it for deviation in a minute. All right, 3 seconds left for my school days, Clement Freud, starting now.
My favourite master was the one who taught cricket and rounders.
That, unfortunately, is all we have time for in this particular round of Just a Minute. And Clement Freud, with his school days and with his other clever challenges, has just managed to be the winner.
Bravo, Clement!
The cheers came from Kenneth Williams, which makes one wonder if the engagement is still on. And in second place, undoubtedly just a few points behind, was Derek Nimmo, a few points behind him, Kenneth Williams, and a few points behind Andree Melly. In that order, thank you very much for listening to this particular edition of Just a Minute. Goodbye from us all here. Goodbye.
Chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Miriam Karlin in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, welcome once again to Just a Minute. And for this particular show, we welcome for the very first time in the show Miriam Karlin, who's joined these other three old campaigners at the game. They're all going to try and speak on some unlikely subject that I will give them for just 1 minute if they can, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of these crimes, they may press their buzzer. If I uphold their challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I don't uphold the challenge, the person who is speaking will gain a point and continue with the subject. With these simple rules, and this is the way we score, let us start this particular show with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, will you begin for us today? And here's a good subject, where to draw the line. Will you talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
Well, obviously you draw the line at anything which outrages the established convention of the day. This is obviously something which everyone should observe. You don't talk to your grandmother in the same way that you talk to your chum.
And, Miriam Karlin, you have challenged. Why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Hesitation. Miriam, you have gained your first point in the show.
It's a disgrace, absolute disgrace. Elongating the vowel.
Kenneth Williams's elongated vowel has gained Miriam a point. So she gains a point, and she also takes over the subject. There are 42 seconds left, Miriam. Where to draw the line, starting now.
If you are an artist...
Derek Nimmo, you challenged.
Very meanly, but hesitation.
Yes, you see, we've got to play the
so
game,
right.
haven't we? Yes. Well, all right, Miriam, you'll get your confidence in a second at the game. Don't worry about them. Go in there and knock them all 3 for 6. So, Derek Nimmo, you take over the subject. 38 seconds for where to draw the line, starting now.
Where to draw the line? Well, it's great fun, really. I generally go down the Strand with a large pot of purple paint, and I go into the pot with my line marker. I get it out, and I go and draw...
Miriam Karlin, you challenged. Why?
Well, because he was about to paint and not draw, because you can't draw really with a pot of paint.
No, you paint a line and don't draw a line. Yes, Miriam.
Very good.
Very clever. So, as I agree, Miriam, with your challenge, you have gained yourself another point. You have 37 seconds for where to draw the line, starting now. Derek
It's all
Nimmo.
very well challenging.
Yes,
One doesn't
Derek-
want the subject back.
He doesn't want the... She doesn't...
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Derek. You
So
have the
right.
subject. 36 seconds for the... You ready, Derek? Starting now.
Sometimes it's terribly difficult to draw lines, you know, especially if one is rather inebriated. I remember one bank holiday Tuesday, or was it Thursday? I can't quite remember. but-
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
There's no bank holiday Tuesday.
I quite agree, but... I quite agree. I had to hear you say it, as we
I had
knew.
established that I was inebriated.
Clever, Derek, but you can't get out of it that way. Clement Freud, you gain a point, you take the subject. 17 seconds, starting now.
On the bathroom floor is the place that I've always chosen to draw a line. It means that when Derek Nimmo comes to my house inebriated, he is able to follow this and find exactly the convenience that he is looking for. Thanks to this foresight, I have...
I must explain to those who may not know the game awfully well that at the end of 60 seconds a whistle is blown by Ian Missiter, who's sitting beside me and also thought of the game, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. In this case it was Clement Freud, who has now exactly equal number of points with Derek Nimmo and Miriam Karlin, and Kenneth Williams has yet to score. But only one round score. Miriam Karlin, will you begin the second round? Wearing funny hats. Will you talk on that subject, please, starting now?
Wearing funny hats is a strange preoccupation which seems to appeal to the wearer of strange hat gear. far more than the people who happen to be looking at them. Strange or amusing headgear usually comes into the category of paper hats which have "Kiss Me Quick" on the front, or these strange cone-shaped things which look as if ice cream should really be running down their faces. One has seen Clement Freud in a funny hat. Personally, I don't think that he himself is nearly as funny wearing the hat as when he is actually giving speech, being funny and amusing.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviations, you're talking about Clement Freud rather than about hats now.
And it was very boring.
Derek Nimmo, you have gained yourself a point. You have 13 seconds for wearing funny hats, starting now.
I love wearing funny hats, you know. It does give me tremendous pleasure. I often pass into the nearest milliner, and I say to the lady behind the counter, "Please, can I try on the purple velvet one at the back?" And she hands it to me, and I put it on, and you know, I look at myself in the mirror, and I scream.
As Derek Nimmo was speaking there when the whistle went, he has gained himself a bonus point. He now has twice as many as Miriam, Karlin and Clement Freud, and Kenneth Williams has yet to score. But it's only round 2. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the third round? What goldfish think about? A little pause for thought on that one. And Derek Nimmo, will you begin now?
Goldfish are terribly unpredictable creatures. I have a pond in my garden where I have goldfish. And, you know, I often wonder what they're thinking about, and I've now discovered. I have discovered quite recently. It happened by a curious set of circumstances. Some people came to my house, amongst them was Freud. We went out in the garden, and they looked at him, and they scuttled away under the nearest stone, disgorged several ant eggs, and swam slowly around in 3 concentric circles. Now, this was a very odd thing. It puzzled me a great deal. I thought about it tremendously through the night. I got up the next morning, and I came to a certain conclusion. You know, goldfish, perhaps... I know I'm what I'm talking about.
Clement Freud. Clement Freud, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, indeed, yes. All that long time, and we never got to what the subject on the card is. What goldfish think about? Clement Freud, can you tell us what they think about? 16 and a half seconds left, starting now.
Goldfish spend the majority of their time thinking about food and air bubbles. The reason for this is that without having...
Kenneth Williams, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed, there's hesitation, Kenneth. So you've gained your first point. You've also gained the subject. There are 8 seconds left. What goldfish think about starting now?
The answer very simply is that they don't think at all. They simply work instinctively.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
The subject is what goldfish think about, not what they don't think about.
But if they don't think what they don't think at all, it means they think about nothing, and that is perfectly possible. So, on this particular occasion... Kenneth Williams has another point. He has 4 seconds left, starting now.
They open their mouths, and when the food goes in, it goes in by instinct, not because they've thought about it at
all. Kenneth Williams has leapt into the lead alongside Derek Nimmo. They're both 1 point ahead of Clement Freud and Miriam Karlin. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Getting dressed on a public beach. You look suitably stunned. But will you try and talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
I'm always dressed on beaches, so the occasion has not occurred for me to dress. But if I had to dress on a public beach, I know exactly how I do it. I would wear the shirt right until the last moment, keep the shirt on till the last moment, securing it round the thighs. Round the thighs, I'd secure the shirt. Round the thighs, you see.
Yes. Derek Nimmo's challenged you, yes.
What's he challenged for?
Well, he's getting undressed, not dressed. You keep your shirt on to the last moment. You're doing the
wasn't he
strip.
undressed?
You're
No,
stripping.
getting dressed.
Getting dressed?
Yes.
Oh, I'm fine.
It does seem that Kenneth gets very confused about whether he should be dressing or undressing, but on this occasion, Derek Nimmo has gained a point. He has 46 seconds left for getting dressed on a public beach, starting now.
When I am getting dressed on a public beach, the first thing that I do is to erect a wigwam. On the top of the wigwam, I put my Union Jack. I then go inside the tent. I take off my...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
He's erected a wigwam and has gone inside a tent.
Well, a wigwam is a tent. nothing.
It's a very modest way to get dressed on a public beach in a wigwam. Derek Nimmo, we continue with you. You have another point, and you have 37 seconds left for getting dressed on a public beach starting now.
I secure all the laces on the front of the thing that I've got inside. I then...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Well, he's told us he's erected it, so he can't secure all the laces. It's done, isn't it?
I'm inside it now, darling.
He's gone inside. Why are you challenging, Kenneth?
Well, 1 minute it's a tent, now it's got to be laced. It sounds like a corset, is it?
Kenneth, you obviously haven't done very much camping.
Oh!
32 seconds for the subject, Derek Nimmo, starting now.
I look gently to make sure there are no peeping toms, and then gently, too, I discard...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition.
What of?
Gently.
Yes,
gently,
indeed,
gently.
all right,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman is quite right. Give him a point.
Oh, my goodness, when you appeal to their better instincts, what does it bring out? Isn't it marvellous? Clement Freud, 27 seconds for getting dressed on a public beach, starting now.
My method of getting dressed on a public beach is very similar to that which I adopt on any other piece of land. I put on my socks, followed by my shoes, thereafter my pants and my trousers. A shirt comes next.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation, you couldn't possibly pull your pants on over your shoes. I mean, your pants would be covered in the boot blacking, wouldn't they?
The trouble is, you see, Kenneth, I agree with you. I mean, you wouldn't and you shouldn't, but obviously you must have some very strange pants if you're Clement Freud, and this is what he does. I mean, it is not impossible.
No,
so
he was nodding himself. He was nodding.
He was nodding off, I think, actually. Anyway, I have to give Clement Freud a point on that. There are 13 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
I buckle my belt and put on my braces, and thereafter take off my braces and put on my shirt, which I tuck
Derek
into
Nimmo,
my
why do you
trousers.
challenge?
Well, he was in the middle, getting undressed again, because he put his braces on and then he took them off again. So that
yes.
must feature as being getting undressed at one particular point.
That's a
He should be
very
getting
clever
dressed.
challenge. You should I'll put it to the audience. Do you agree with Derek Nimmo's challenge? If you do,
Yes.
will you please cheer? If you disagree, will you please boo? Will you all please do it together now? Derek Nimmo, you've gained a point. You have 6 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
I put on my socks and then I put on my shoes. Then I put on my white
Miriam,
underpants.
Karlin, you challenge. Why?
Well, he's
You've had
putting
shoes and socks already over
Yes,
there, haven't
it
we?
was
Well done,
all
Miriam. You've gained a
repetition.
point. There is
Adding to
one...
which I hadn't said anything for hours and I was getting very bored.
Exactly. I can't give you a bonus point for that, Miriam, but you have got the subject. There's only 1 second left for getting dressed in a public beach, starting now.
When I...
As Miriam was about to speak when the whistle went, she gains an extra point.
Have I leapt into the lead?
You leapt into a very commanding second place alongside Clement Freud.
Oh, goody.
Kenneth Williams is trailing a little. Derek Nimmo is definitely in the lead. Clement Freud begins the next round, and the subject is the advantages of not being on the telephone. It's a long subject. Think about it for a second, Clement, and start now.
One of the principal advantages of not being on the telephone is that late at night it can't suddenly ring and wake you. What happens is the people next door come in early in the morning and say, while you were asleep, somebody telephoned you, and here's the message: would you go to the butcher's shop and collect a parcel which was left there by the postman? I think there are no other advantages to this complete cutting...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation, he said there are no other advantages. So he stopped talking about the advantages.
Exactly, yes, and also there's a hesitation. But Derek Nimmo, you have the subject, 32 seconds left. The advantages of not being on the telephone, starting
The
now.
advantages of not being on the telephone are many. One thing is
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Clement, 26 seconds left, starting now.
It also means that nobody can ring your children, which must be a tremendous advantage, because I have a daughter who is constantly and permanently engaged, speaking to friends who don't want to speak to her either. I have a...
Miriam Karlin, you've challenged.
Well,
Hesitation. Yes, Miriam, you have a point. And there are 13 seconds left. The advantages of not being on the telephone, starting now.
the advantage...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I'm afraid, Miriam, you have
Oh,
to
you're
start quickly.
joking. I think
No,
you're
they're
beast-
very wicked in this game. They're very wicked. Now get your
But you
finger...
said-
Get your finger on that buzzer and get cracking, girl. Are you ready? Right, Clement Freud, the 12 seconds for the advantage of not being on the telephone, starting now.
Every 3 months you don't...
Miriam Karlin, you've challenged. Why?
Well, you told me to.
If I told you to, Miriam, you must obviously have gained a point.
Because the chairman's verdict
You have
is-
10.5 seconds left for the advantages of not being on the telephone starting now.
It's absolutely marvellous to not be woken up in the middle of the night by boring people.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition, I've just said that.
Yes, I'm afraid you did just
You
say
said
so.
it, I didn't.
I know, but it's been said in this round, so I'm afraid in this situation, Clement Freud gains another point. He has 5 seconds left for the subject starting now.
Every 3 months you do not get a telephone.
Derek
call.
Nimmo, why do you challenge?
He's already mentioned months. He said they phoned his
That's
daughter
true,
every
yes,
month.
that is true. You did say
All the
that.
months.
Well, I've done nothing for ages.
So who do you want to have the
now?
point, Kenneth Williams?
What?
Who do you think should have the point, Kenneth Williams?
I don't remember what was happening.
Oh! He jumps onto Derek Nimmo's side and now he's
Well,
intimidated
you've
by
got to
Clement
have
Freud.
rules. I mean, haven't you? You've got to abide by the rules.
Yes, but you didn't abide by anything from what you just said.
Oh.
All right, I put it to the audience. I've forgotten what was said. No, actually, Derek Nimmo challenge for months, and months has been used a number of times before. Therefore, within the context of the game, I must fairly give it to Derek. Another point
You're
to Derek.
quite right. A
Thank
good
you very
decision.
much. 4 seconds left for Derek Nimmo starting now.
It is the most tremendous advantage not being on the telephone. For
Miriam Karlin, why do you challenge?
Repetition. There have been loads of
Advantages of not being on the telephone.
That's a
Miriam,
good point.
You
Yes,
have another
yes.
point. You have
You're quite right.
It's popular.
Yes, get yourself ready, Miriam. 2 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
One doesn't have to go through this ghastly.
Derek Nimmo has a lead of 1. Miriam Karlin, without any help from the chairman, is in second place, just 1 point behind. Clement Freud's 1 point behind that, and Kenneth Williams only 2 points behind that. So it is a very keen contest, as you see. Miriam Karlin, will you begin the next round, please? Dieting. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
Some of us are fat, and others are like Derek Nimmo and Kenneth Williams.
Kenneth Williams, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, you needn't say it with such vehemence, though. We do agree. I'd say more apologetically so early in the show.
I'm sorry, but there've got to be rules. You can't laugh about them. You must abide by the rules.
Kenneth Williams, you have 52 seconds for talking about
I'll
dieting,
get my own
starting...
back on you.
52 seconds, Kenneth, starting now.
There is a great fallacy about this word because everyone assumes that if you abide by this diet thing, you will lose weight. It's, of course, a load of rubbish. The only way you lose weight is, of course, to starve. Go without food, and indeed, the old fakirs of the East all recommended starvation. It is in all creeds that you should, at some point or another, give up the food, give up the material comforts, go out into the desert, in fact, get away from all the material things, get away from your central heating, get away from your fitted carpet, get away from your upholstery. What's the matter with him? He's got hysterical. He's pressing this buzzer like there's no tomorrow.
I know. He's trying to challenge you, Kenneth.
What on?
I don't know. Let's find out. Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Sitting next to getaway people. Repetition.
Yes, there was a lot of repetition, yes. You were out in that desert doing goodness knows what, Ken. So, Clement Freud has the subject. 20 seconds left, starting now.
One of the great seats of dieting is a health resort which is ever becoming more popular in this country. For £28 a week or more, you may go to...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviations, advertising.
Kenneth, if he had mentioned the name of the place, he would have been advertising. So to try and be fair, I don't think I can uphold your challenge.
I think that's a very good decision, Mr. Chairman.
As it's your
It
point,
also-
I know you would agree, Clement.
It was also very untrue because it costs a lot more than £28 a week.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the game, Miriam, but thanks for hearing your voice. It was lovely. There are 12 seconds left for dieting Clement Freud, starting now.
You arrive at these dieting centres, and the first thing they do is give you...
Kenneth Williams, why do you...
Repetition, we've already had dieting.
We've had
so
rather a
many
lot of
times.
dieting, so Kenneth, you take the subject over now. 9 seconds left, starting now.
I was told once that if you do nothing but bananas and dry biscuits, it would really get you somewhere. They said just the dry biscuits, but I bet
Clement
That was good, wasn't it? Did you get that?
Yes, it was a very good attempt and actually sort of stop us challenging you.
That's right.
Yes, very well. Clement Freud, you challenge.
Repetition, dry biscuits.
Dry biscuits, yes. Clement Freud, 2 seconds left for dieting starting now.
Hot water tinged with lemon.
Miriam Karlin, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Miriam. You have the subject. 1 second left for dieting starting now. No, Derek Nimmo challenge first. Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation.
No, there was no hesitation. Miriam Karlin has another point. There's half a second left for you, Miriam. Dieting starting now.
I've discovered the...
I don't know what Miriam Karlin was going to say that she discovered. She might have
The
discovered how...
answer to dieting.
Oh, I thought you discovered how to play the game, because you have leapt into the lead. Miriam, you have 1 point lead over Clement Freud, who's 1 point down at Derek Nimmo, who's 2 or 3 points in front of Kemi. You're still definitely in 4th place, Kenneth. I'm very sorry. Yes.
Are you sure
Sit
you're
down. I must explain to the listeners that Kenneth was so overcome with disbelief, he had to rush from his seat, rush over to me, and look at the points of scoring that Ian Mester has in front of him, which we go by. Kenneth, you are going to start the next round. The subject is complaining about neighbours. Starting now.
You complain about neighbours because, with reason, you have had your rest, say, unjustifiably disturbed. And the worst way of doing this is when people play things through the walls. You know, they do it sometimes with a piano, or sometimes with a radio, sometimes with a guitar. I've actually heard people practicing the guitar through the wall. I've had me
Derek
against the
Nimmo.
wall and
Derek
heard their
Nimmo.
guitar.
Derek Nimmo's challenged your guitar.
Repetition of guitar.
Yes, we had a lot of guitars coming through Kenneth's wall.
No, I said guitar. They were practicing guitar.
Your guitar has gained Derek a point. He has 29 seconds for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
I think it's terribly difficult to know where to draw the line when you're complaining about neighbours. I think one of the things you complain about is if they're wearing funny hats, or if they're goldfish or swimming around.
Miriam Karlin, why do you challenge?
Deviation. He's discussing 2 other subjects which were discussed earlier on, drawing the line and, whatever it was. Wearing funny hats.
So what do you challenge on?
Deviation.
No, because what he brought these in as phrases in his description about complaining about neighbours, he wasn't actually on that subject, therefore I think it's only
Well,
fair.
it's repetition.
No, don't try again. No, Derek Nimmo has another point. He has 22 seconds left for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
One of the disadvantages of not being on the telephone is that you can't complain if you see them getting dressed
Clement
on a
Freud, why
public
do you
beach.
challenge?
Repetition.
Of what?
We've already had the telephone.
No,
and
that was the
disadvantages.
advantage. This is one of the disadvantages, I say.
So Derek Nimmo has another point, and he has 17 seconds left for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
I generally go and knock on the door when I'm complaining about these fellows. I say, "What ho there beyond? Would you please desist from the dreadful noise that you're making?"
Kenneth Mills, why do you challenge?
Deviation, you don't call somebody beyond. What ho there beyond? Who's called beyond? I've never met someone up to a bloke and said hello beyond.
It's a clever challenge. The only fair way to do it is this. I will give you a point for cleverness, Kenneth.
Thank you ever so much.
But leave the subject with Derek Nimmo, who continues with 7 seconds left for 8 seconds, complaining about the neighbours, starting now.
And when they answer me, I say, "Do you realise?"
Miriam Karlin, why do you challenge?
Slight hesitation.
Slight
Yes,
hesitation,
definitely.
Miriam.
Oh, yes.
Miriam, you have the subject. There are 6 seconds left for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
When my neighbours decide to like...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, Derek. There are 4 seconds left for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
I don't like to do this, but would you please stop from...
Miriam Karlin, why do you challenge?
Because he didn't like to do it. He didn't like to do it, and we didn't like to do it.
You mean if he didn't like to do it, it was very devious of to come down here at all and try and
Yes.
do it? Exactly, Miriam. Of course.
Very devious.
So, Miriam, you have the subject with 1 second left for complaining about neighbours, starting now.
People who write vampires on it.
Well, the final result, I think, in the circumstances, was very fair. Miriam came behind with a great rush at the end. Clement Freud was in there right to the end, in spite of his generosity towards Kenneth Williams. But Derek Nimmo, by his cleverness and ingenuity, by 1 point, is this week's winner.
Hooray! Good old Derek!
The generous hurrahs and well dones came from Kenneth Williams because he was in 4th place just behind Miriam and Clement Freud, who were both equal. That's all we have time for. From all of us here, goodbye. Goodbye.
chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Geraldine Jones in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, these four clever exponents of the game are going to try and do battle in this verbal battle of wits and try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them, and they will try and do it without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. And if they're successful in doing this, they will gain points. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of one of these crimes, they may challenge by pressing a buzzer in front of them, and if I uphold their challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I don't uphold their challenge, the person speaking gains a point and keeps the subject. This is the way we score. This is the way we play the game. Geraldine Jones, preventing long telephone conversations. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
It would be far too simple to say on this highly sophisticated programme that the best way of preventing long...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
I think this is one of the most unhighly sophisticated programs I've...
Well,
I
Clement,
think it's crude to a degree.
You're a disgrace to say unhighly. I've never heard such bad English in my life.
And your eyes...
You've got the nerve to pick up a lady. That's not very gallant. A lady sitting there trying to do her best, and you cut in on her like that. And that's awful, isn't it?
I take it back.
That's dreadful.
I withdraw.
But I think Kenneth Williams
I withdraw.
And I think Kenneth Williams has approved how unsophisticated it is. Only fair thing to do, I'm sure, is because I think it was a clever challenge, is to give Clement Freud a point for that, but leave the subject with Geraldine Jones, who continues for another 55 seconds on preventing long telephone conversations, starting now.
Venting long conversations is by putting the telephone receiver down very smartly as soon as you've heard that the person you're speaking to is not someone that you want to go on talking to. But on the other hand, if you want to be a little more sophisticated, then the thing to do is to say, "Ah, my house is on fire," and run away from the telephone immediately. Or on the other hand, to say, "I'm just..."
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
We've had two other hands.
I have to.
You are not going to get any points for that cleverness. All we do is to give Geraldine Jones a point, and she continues with the subject for the next 36 seconds, starting now.
Or you can purposefully mistake the name of the person you're speaking to, so that if it's John, you talk to him as Brian throughout the conversation. And this makes him so...
Repetition of conversation.
Derek Nimmo, repetition of conversation. Yes, Derek Nimmo. 27 seconds left for you on the subject, starting now.
Of course, quite obviously, the best way to prevent long telephone conversations is to have a short wire. All you have to do is to have a telephone here and one sitting down on the floor underneath, and then you can chat quite comfortably without any length of the thing being involved at all. I don't know anybody has no... I'm rather not.
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, you have another point. You have 8 seconds left for the subject, starting
Wasn't
now.
a hesitation, it was a
Ideally, you
flounder.
do it from a telephone box with insufficient money to protract anything that anyone might say. For instance, if it costs 1 shilling to have...
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, he gains a bonus point, which at the end of that first round gives a very definite lead over all the others. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? And on this point, I'm sure you can talk very easily why I am so popular. 60 seconds, starting now.
If you combine false logic with faulty thinking, you do have a random chance of arriving at the correct answer.
Derek Nimmo, You've challenged.
Regrettably hesitation.
Yes, he just couldn't think why he was so popular. So Derek Nimmo has the subject, and there are 51 seconds left. Why I'm so popular, Derek, starting now.
Why I am so popular is really because I pay tremendous attention to bodily hygiene. I do think it's terribly important, you know. Every morning I get into my bath and I scrub my feet very well and very thoroughly. I make sure my toenails are beautifully clean and polished and rounded. I then get out of my bath, having cleaned the rest of it whilst I was in it, I might say, all round about, and I cover myself with talcum powder. To my dressing room I go, select a pair of lily white underpants, put them on, a lovely chemise, a bow tie.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. This is all about personal hygiene and sartorial elegance. It's nothing to do with why I'm popular.
It might be the
Why I
reason
am popular.
he has decided that that is the reason he's popular,
I can't
because...
be any other reason.
Oh, they're on his side.
So Derek Nimmo's sartorial elegance and hygiene is keeping him going with another point, and 23 seconds left for why I'm so popular, starting now.
Then I get my comb and I brush through my golden locks.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
He hasn't got golden locks.
No, he said he hasn't got golden locks.
No, I brush through them before I dye them.
You're
The
being
next
too...
bit coming up.
That's really...
That is really getting out of it.
So patient.
No. We couldn't wait for you to dye your hair in this particular programme. There isn't time. You can't get out of that way, Derek. Clement Freud has another point. He has 19 seconds left for why I'm so popular, starting now.
I think it's purely kindness of spirit and beauty of mind.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation is desperately unpopular.
Oh, yes. Oh, big cheers.
We have no knowledge that you are popular for the reasons that you gave us, Derek. So we're going to have to accept Clement Freud's reasons, and he continues with another 15 seconds for why I'm so popular, starting now.
When I left the studio yesterday and went to my car, somebody had very kindly written on the windscreen, "We love Clement Freud." They had actually misspelt both the first name and the second, but it was a kind thought, and I was delighted and realized finally...
Well, Clement Freud, rather late in that round, finding a reason why he thought he was so popular, has given himself an even bigger lead over the other three who are almost equal in second place. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? What they may find on Mars. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, it all depends, really, upon which Ma you select. I remember going to see old Ma Edgerton, who lives in Burnley. And at first they found very little trace of living life upon her. But after a thorough investigation, both the biologists and the naturalists did find some proof that there was life on this particular Ma. They did find other things. She wore clogs and lisle stockings, long cami knickers, a liberty...
Geraldine Jones, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Was waiting for
No. He was going very well. No.
Yeah, I was liking the bit about the knickers. And
I like the bit about the lisle stockings with the
yeah, I
clogs.
was getting all worked up over here.
All right, very sexy, I think. Lisle stockings with clogs. Or very devious. They could have challenged on that, couldn't they? All right. 25 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo. You've got another point. What they may find on Mars, continue now.
Unlike the investigation into Ma Crossfield, who lives in Huddersfield, there they found several craters and lots of curious canals, but no trace at all of any sea that resembled tranquility. They did find upon her a large frilly hat with a feather on the top, with a little pom-pom in the middle, which is a great shock to everybody, and a veil.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
What of?
Pom-pom.
Ambassador, you thought of the game. Who do I award the point to?
You must
Give this to the audience.
I'll give it to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with Clement Freud's challenge, will you please cheer? If you disagree with his challenge, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? I decide the rays have it. Clement Freud has a point for his pom-poms. 6 seconds left with Clement Freud to continue what they may find on Mars, starting now.
A wealth of mineral and deposits such as geologists would like and investigate...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Hesitation between wood and like.
I don't think there was any hesitation
Yes, there
at
was,
all.
quite definitely.
No, I don't think so. So Clement Freud has another point. And there are 2 seconds left, starting now.
and signs of human life such as...
They really did that.
I think Kenneth Williams was trying a little Clement Freud trick then, trying to get in just before the whistle went, but I don't think he succeeded, and so Clement Freud has got a very commanding lead in this particular round over all three others, who are all very close in second place. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round, keeping one's temper? Can you talk about that subject? Starting now?
This is the mark, of course, of a civilized man. This is what really being learned, being well brought up is about. Keeping one's temper, not allowing the passions to overrule one, not allowing oneself to suddenly shut your great mouth and things like that. Because this is not going to induce harmony. It is not going to bring about goodwill. Who's challenged?
Clement Freud is challenged.
What basis?
What basis, Clement?
Hesitation.
Do you think you hesitated, Kenneth?
Well, I mean, I leave it to you. You're the chairman. You're the best at the judging. I mean...
Yeah, but you giggled. Actually, you did hesitate. It was only because Clement was so far in the lead and you were so far behind.
You've got to have the rules.
You've got to have the rules. You're quite right. You're very sporting, Kenneth. So Clement Freud has another point, and he has 33 seconds left for keeping one's temper, starting now.
In this sort of game, it is absolutely essential to resolve one's equanimity. And I...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
I just don't understand. What does it deviate from? How can you resolve your equanimity? What does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know what it means.
Well, all right. Explain to him, Clement.
I said reserve, or I meant to say reserve.
Yes, but you said resolve. So
Did I?
Clement Kenneth Williams
Quite
has
right.
another point, and he has 29 seconds
Quite
left for
right.
keeping one's temper. Starting now.
The best way to do this is to count very slowly, 1 to whatever number suits you, when you feel this terrible urge mounting inside, when you feel your gall and your spleen.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
I've not the slightest idea. I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry, but he said gall. I thought he was going to stop at the end, but he didn't.
He didn't. He went
I
on.
do
So Derek,
apologize.
Kenneth
Give him a
Williams
point.
Has I'm not going to give it to him. Yeah, I'm not going to give it to him. He's won it, fair and square. So,
Yeah.
Kenneth, you have another point, and you have 17 seconds left for keeping one's temper, starting now.
And then conjure up a vision of beauty and loveliness, something which was a lesson, say, of morality to all mankind. And then, with that floating through your head, you will find that your lips will give forth some sweetness, some strange poetry. People will kneel before you. He didn't know the whistle very well, did he?
Well, Kenneth's strange poetry has not helped him to leap into the lead, but he's still in second place alongside Geraldine Jones and Derek Nimmo, who are still all far behind Clement Freud. Geraldine Jones, your turn to begin the next round. Useless occupations. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Long ago, I came to the conclusion that all occupations which involve any sort of effort at all are totally useless. The more active we become, the more useless the end involved. People who teach are really doing something very useless. What is the purpose of their work? To teach other people to be equally useless later in life. People who serve in shops, they sell stuff so that we can buy it, so that we can eat it, so that we have to go back and buy more. Perhaps the most notorious of these is that of politicians. All these people who live in their little houses and make their little speeches.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition of little.
Little houses.
In little houses, yes. All right, Clement. You have 23 seconds left for useless occupations, starting now.
One of the most useless occupations, and I shall come to others by and by, is the refurbishing of finger stalls, which a friend of mine called Horace Whitmore does in Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire.
Clement Williams, why do you challenge?
By and by, said repetition, because he said pom-pom.
About 20 minutes ago.
If you have uphold a challenge of pom-poms and a repetition of little, which I think is slightly trivial, and I must award by and by, so Kenneth Williams, you have another point. You have 11 seconds for useless occupations, starting now.
Well, I feel I can add very little to what Geraldine Jones has said so eloquently. And indeed, politicians are totally
Derek Nimmo,
useless.
why have you challenged?
Well, he's not talking about it. He can't add anything to it. He's not talking about the subject, is he? So it's devious.
He is talking about the subject because Geraldine Jones is talking about useless
See,
occupations.
I feel I can add nothing to it, he said. Those were his very words.
But he was
almost.
going on to say that he was on Geraldine Jones' subject, useless occupations. Derek Kenneth Williams, you have another point. You have 4 seconds left, starting now.
How many times have we heard these cliches pouring out of their lips? We shall go forward together. How many times have you heard that? Thank you, Mum.
Well, Clement Freud's still in the lead, but Kenneth Williams is now definitely in second place ahead of the other two. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round, queuing up at the post office? 60 seconds on that subject, if you can, starting now.
I have absolutely no idea what one does in a post office. I suppose you send your secretary and you say, will you go to this place, and stand behind a lot of other people if they're in your way.
Derek Nimmo, why you challenge?
Hesitation?
Yes, I'm afraid there was, because he's thinking about queuing up at the post office. So, Derek Nimmo, you carry on with 46 seconds for queuing up at the post office, starting now.
Generally, I choose the one in Trafalgar Square because I awfully like the mural on the wall. In the door I go, and when I get firmly inside, I join the queue, and it's awfully jolly, you know. You'll be surprised at the people you meet. You talk to the fellow next to you, you say, why are you queuing? And he said, I'm here to buy a threepenny stamp. Oh, really? I say, that's rather out of date now, because we have to pay 4pence or 5pence. He said, do you really? I said, yes, you do.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged.
Repetition.
Repetition, yes. I must tell the listeners that he was acting so well to the audience, that's why he got carried away and he said, I do. 25 seconds for you, Geraldine Jones, to continue with queuing up at the post office, starting now.
Queuing up at the post office is really more a sport than a chore because you can jump queues. You start in one, and then when you see that the next one is working much more efficiently than the one you're in, you move to it, and then you see that the next one, and so it goes on until you find that you've done a wonderful sort of hurdle race all round the post office until at the end.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition, alas, of post office.
Yes, I'm afraid there was too many references to the post office. That's quite right. We've had it many times mentioned. Derek, you have another point. You have 13 seconds left, starting now.
The next but one fellow said, oh, I'm here to buy a postal order. So I said, why? He said, oh, well, I want to send one off for my football pools. I said, that's terribly interesting. Who have you supported?
Well, at the end of that round, Derek Nimmo, Geraldine Jones, and Kenneth Williams are now all equal in second place, but definitely quite a way behind Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? It's quite a simple one. Curly. Now.
The best way to do this is after washing your hair to apply a decent sort of setting lotion. A lot of this stuff is quite gluey, but the results are enormously rewarding. I've just kinked in a few waves, you see, and the curls afterwards have been ravishing. People have stopped me and said, what lovely curls you've got. And indeed, when I was younger, I had them right the way down to me. Well, I tell you, I could sit on them. I could sit on them. Oh, what a fool I was.
Yeah. You challenged why?
Repetition of sitting on.
Yes. His sit-upon gave him away, and so you, Derek Nimmo, have a point, and you have 23 seconds left, starting now.
It's a game, you see. You have large things that you chuck across the ice with great abandon, and you score up points. It is played very often in Scotland and in northern Canada, because a lot of Scottish folks, you know, immigrated to northern Canada. Some
Kenneth, why do you challenge?
Deviation. We're not discussing immigration.
No,
the
we're
subject
not.
is curling.
So, Kenneth, you have another point, and you have 14 seconds left for curling, starting now.
Curling can also be done by a process of heating. You actually blow hot air onto the locks and form the pattern.
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
Deviation. I can't imagine Kenneth Williams blowing hot air onto his own locks.
I think Kenneth Williams blows a lot of hot air all the time. Right, you have another point, Kenneth, and you have 5 seconds left, starting now.
And the blowing of the hot air so forms a lovely kiss.
Derek Nimmo, why did you challenge?
Blowing, unfortunately.
Yes, we had the blowing of the hot air
Repetition.
again. So there are 3 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo, to take up curling, starting now.
Well, I wind it round my finger like so, you see. And when I take my finger...
Well, we are still in this situation with Derek Nimmo, Geraldine Jones, and Kenneth Williams almost equal in second place together, and in a very commanding lead still, Clement Freud. Geraldine, will you begin the next round? The subject is Why I Like Men, and you start now.
It would be terribly invidious on this programme to say why I like men. It would be impossible, of course, to play the game if I didn't, because I'm sitting here surrounded by them. But I suppose, really, the main reason...
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Hesitate?
Yes, indeed, there was a hesitation. So you have the subject, and there are 49 seconds left, Clement Freud, for you to try and tell us. And listeners, I should explain that laughter from the audience is caused by the fact that Kenneth Williams is sitting back in obvious pleasure at the thought of his friend who has sparred with him, shall I say, throughout the series, as he listens to Clement Freud telling us for 49 seconds, if he can, why I like men. Clement, starting now.
Principally, it's because of their lovely hair. When you get a man of quality sitting close to you, who has blown hot air over his upper and out, there's nothing more beautiful or more attractive than the sheer sight of such a person close to you. But I also like men for their intelligence as well as their sheer beauty. I know, for instance, Derek Nimmo, who has knowledge unparalleled among people on the stage, and a devoutness of thought, a decency of religion, and a heart...
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
It was anticipatory hesitation.
Anticipatory?
I seem to slow down.
Join that, you go on,
Your anticipatory buzz on your buzzer, Geraldine, has given Clement another point, and there are 14 seconds left for him to continue with why I like men, starting now.
Just have to extreme
They
youth.
also have very pretty feet, among which I would like to join the name of Mr. Nimmo. But
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, regrettably, repetition of Nimmo.
Yes. I thought you would have said not regrettably, but otherwise. But anyway, Derek, some say we can't have too much of Nimmo, but in this game we can. So it is 6 seconds for you to continue with why I like men, starting now.
I like men particularly like the leader of the opposition.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. The leader of the Occupation has given Geraldine another point, and she's got 3 seconds left with the subject back in her lap, why I like men.
The main reason, obviously, is because I'm a woman, and this is the most...
The situation at the end of that round is exactly the same. Clement Freud still has a very definite lead over the other three, who are almost equal in second place. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? And the subject is my relations. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
my relations consist of the father-mother syndrome, which is so popular in Russian novels, but extending to brothers and cousins, to aunts and uncles, and to other relations which I don't at this moment want to mention, but which I shall talk about in a moment. Or not, as the case may be.
Or you don't want to, perhaps. Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation, because the moment has gone.
Yes, yes, and he don't think he can go on with those other relations. So we'll press on with you, Derek. 37 seconds left for my relations, starting now.
Well, first of all, I have a mummy. I used to have a daddy. I have a sister Valerie, an aunt Beatrice, a cousin, a dear cousin, actually. Repetition.
Clement Freud.
Repetition.
Yes, he had to overemphasize his cousin. So Clement Freud has the subject back, and there are 27 seconds left for my relations, starting now.
Abigail Nunthorpe is one whom I've often called Auntie, although she's actually not a blood relative.
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, he's not talking about blood
If
relations.
she's not a blood relative, she's not a relation.
Precisely.
All right? So, Geraldine, you have the subject. Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
I beg your pardon, I'm right to challenge your judgment. Of course, that was ridiculous. I was going to say you can be related to someone by law, and it seemed to me perfectly
You're
valid.
absolutely right. So I had to put it to the audience. Kenneth Williams has pointed out that there is a way of interpreting that remark, so I'll let the audience be the judge. Do you think that Geraldine Jones is right? If you agree, will you please cheer? If you disagree, will you please boo? And will you all do it now? Well, I'm afraid undoubtedly the audience entirely agree with Geraldine. So Geraldine has a point. She has 17 seconds left for my relations, starting now.
Close relations you can normally cope with because you know who they are. You visit your auntie and uncle and sisters and brothers at Christmas and at birthday times. It's the ones...
Kenneth Williams' wife.
Deviation is completely untrue that she visits her uncle or her auntie at Christmas time.
We've only got her word for it. How do you know
I
she
can
doesn't?
tell you this. I can give you information after the show about it. They've been crying out for her to visit them. They've said make it because she won't go near them. And now she's got the cool nerve to sit there and talk. Yeah, get on with it.
Now, Kenneth, if you can give us proof here and now...
Oh, well, I can't do it now.
Well, that's all right. Then
No.
Geraldine has another point, and she has 10 seconds left. Fire relations, Geraldine, starting now.
It's the ones that you don't know about that are the worrying things. You visit Coventry and you have no idea that anybody there knows you, and suddenly somebody jumps up in the street and says, "Hello!"
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular game of Just a Minute. And at the end of that game, Kenneth Williams was in 4th place, only just, 1 point behind Geraldine Jones, only just was 1 point behind Derek Nimmo, who was definitely a long way behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. Thank you, on behalf of our winner, very much for that applause. We hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye and thank you for listening.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Juno Alexander in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And in this particular game, we welcome to represent the ladies Juno Alexander, and I hope she can speak out well against these 3 seasoned campaigners. The rules are the same. We'll try and keep them the same anyway. I'm going to ask each person to speak for just a minute, if they can, on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. Clement Freud, will you begin this particular game? The subject is the function of a good waiter. Will you speak on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
The function of a good waiter is pretty much like the function of any other good human being. He gets up early in the morning and performs his ablutions, and then runs out to catch a bus or train to work, where he goes throughout the day doing the devious and boring things that good people in this world tend to perform.
Juno Alexander, you have challenged. Why?
Because he said that he did devious things, which must be a deviation. No?
Very clever. That's a very clever challenge, Juno. I think...
I wish I was dead.
He'll sulk all evening.
No, he won't.
No, I think that as he didn't actually deviate within the context of the game, I think the best thing to do is to award you a bonus point for a very clever challenge and leave the subject with Clement Freud, who has 40 seconds left, starting now. Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, indeed.
I was actually sulking as predicted by Derek Nimmo.
But all that happens, Clement, is that you lose a point. And you don't lose a point,
no.
but Derek Nimmo gains a point. He gains the subject. There are 38 seconds left, Derek, on the functions of a good waiter, starting now.
Well, the functions of a good waiter are particularly important if you're waiting at a bus stop, because you should stand absolutely still in line until the machine arrives. Not an eyebrow must be lifted, not a muscle twitched, not an eye or nose.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, indeed. So as I uphold your challenge, Clement, you take the subject back, you have a point, and you have 23 seconds left, starting now.
A good waiter goes up to a customer, gives him a menu, and takes his order. Would you like smoked salmon, oysters, or caviar, he says, because these are the most expensive...
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
He's showing off, you see. I mean, who can afford oysters and caviar and smoked salmon? A good waiter says, would you like the brown Windsor soup?
Derek, he may be showing off, but he's still playing the game as we have devised it, so Clement Freud has another point. He continues for 13 seconds for the function of a good waiter, starting now.
In lower-class establishments, many good waiters are...
Kenneth Williams, you have challenged this time.
Abbreviation. Of course, you wouldn't find any good waiters in lower classes.
They've got to start somewhere.
It depends on the establishments which you frequent, Kenneth. Maybe in yours there are none.
How are you casting aspersions?
Yes.
Oh.
I think that's one of those difficult ones. It's a very clever challenge. So, Kenneth, I will award you a bonus point for a clever challenge.
Thank you. Because I've leapt into the lead, haven't I, then?
You've leapt up equal of everybody else.
Oh,
yes.
lovely.
But Clement Freud...
Thank you, my love.
There are 9 seconds left for the functions of a good waiter, Clement Freud, starting now.
It is particularly important for such a man to be attentive, to keep his eye on customers at all times.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of customers.
That is perfectly correct. We have had customers before. Derek Nimmo, the functions of a good waiter, starting now.
Would you like the pea soup or the sausage roll, he says. I would like...
Juno Alexander, you've challenged.
Well,
Why?
this is a deviation because really, if it's a good waiter, he'd offer the menu and not keep insisting on the people.
You're all being far too
right.
clever. Derek Nimmo has another point. There are 2 seconds left for the functions of a good waiter. Derek, starting now.
And here's the menu, sire, he says.
Well, if there's any waiters listening, I should assure them their functions have got us off to a very good start on this particular round of Just a Minute. And at the end, Derek Nimmo is leading by 1 point, Clement Freud is second, and Juno and Kenneth are in third place. It's terribly exciting, isn't it? Good. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the second round? The bloom of youth. Kenneth, I'm sure you can speak eloquently on that subject, but 60 seconds will do, starting now.
The bloom of youth was something which, when I knew it, I lacked the capacity to take advantage of.
No, carry on. No, the applause absolutely floored Kenneth Williams.
Yes,
We didn't
it did.
expect
It floored
So
me.
we're still with you, Kenneth.
Thank you.
And we have 47 seconds left for your bloom of youth, starting now.
Had I known then what I know now, I have no doubt that my career would have gone very differently. Still, I cherish those photographs which show me with that wonderful bloom, that look of innocence, and incredibly...
Juno Alexander, you challenged Kenneth's bloom of youth.
Why? Because he said he cherishes his youthful photographs, and usually the bloom is on the other side of his cheek.
I think we enjoy Kenneth's bloom of youth so much. I can't quite see any genuine challenge there. So I'm afraid Kenneth has another point, as I don't agree with the challenge. And there are 35 seconds left for your bloom of youth, Kenneth, starting now.
It was surrounded by golden curls that went right down.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Deviation. It was surrounded by golden curls.
The bloom of youth was. What's the matter with you?
Well, I tell you what the matter is. He's given you another point, Kenneth.
Oh, well,
So
lovely.
there are 31 seconds for the bloom of youth, starting now.
And a memorable portrait remains of that wonderful moment. I was once photographed, yes?
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of photographs.
Oh,
We've had the
Yes,
photograph.
you're quite right. We've had more than one photograph. So, Derek, you have another point. You have 29 seconds for the bloom of youth, starting now.
The most beautiful bloom that I saw in my youth was a bluebell that I picked in the merry month of May in some little woods just about my own.
Clement Freud, you've
Hesitation.
Yes, very rotten of you too. It was his
By
natural
natural
impediment.
I didn't know he got one.
Making fun of the sick.
Very elfish.
But to be fair, I am afraid I have to give it to you, Clement. You have a point. You have 17 seconds for the bloom of youth, starting now.
The bloom of youth is something I always associate with Kenneth Williams. The golden curls that lapped around his forehead.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of Kenneth Williams and his golden curls.
Yes, indeed. We've had them both before.
You can't have enough of them.
Well, a lot of people are obviously in great sympathy with that thought, Kenneth, but we have to play the game, so Derek Nimmo has a point. He has 9.5 seconds for the bloom of youth starting now.
When I was 3.5 years old, my Aunt Beatrice came to the room and said, "What a blooming awful youth you are." And I said, "It's funny that you should say that, because people have said that to me before."
For those of you who may be new to the game, I don't think I've established that whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, gets another point. On this occasion, it was once more Derek Nimmo, who's now got a very definite lead over all three others. Juno Alexander, will you begin the next round? Indoor plants. Will you talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Indoor plants can be very vicious, cruel things, inclined to bite and strangle the hand that feeds them. Oh, they can come from...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
A groan.
A groan.
Well, I mean, hesitation.
Hesitation. Derek, you have a point. There are 49 seconds left for the indoor plants starting now.
I once had 47 shillings and sixpence, and I went into my local florist and I bought an aspidistra all of my own. I took it home to my house, and every day I cleaned the leaves of this beautiful plant with olive oil, which I'm told made them very shiny, and sure enough it did. And you know, people used to come from far and wide to see this lovely thing that I had in my drawing room. I remember one day the vicar knocked at the door and said, "I've heard strange stories."
Rotten. Clement Freud.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. You've got him on his stutter again. And Clement, you have another point. You have 24 seconds for indoor plants starting now.
My favourite indoor plant is a rhododendron, which is taken from a...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Well, deviation. A rhododendron is not an indoor plant.
You're quite right. Clement feels very hurt about this. You wish to justify it in some way.
It was in the middle of saying a rhododendron, which I took out of a field into my drawing.
It would still, I consider, not become an indoor plant.
It would be a plant indoors.
It would not become an indoor plant, as this, I'm sure, is intended to mean. And so Kenneth Williams has a point. He has 20 seconds left, starting now.
Well, I went quite recently to a house, and I said to the owner of that place, "What a lovely rubber plant," and he said, "No, it's real." And I meant... Yes, indeed, you see. And what I meant was the plant of the rubber tree.
Clement Freud.
But of course he assumed that I meant it was synthetic.
Yes.
What?
Clement has challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, indeed. Yes, there we are. So you lose it, Clement, but you get it back. So it's an advantage in all these things. 4 seconds left for indoor plants. Clement Freud. You said rubber twice.
But...
So it's a repetition of rubber.
You're allowed to, aren't you?
Yeah, but not rubber, the indoor plants. You're allowed to mention the name of the subject, which is indoor plants, Kenneth.
Oh, lackaday-roo. I never...
What a charming way to swear. 4 seconds left for Clement Freud, indoor plants starting now.
One of the great mistakes when you have indoor plants is to overwater them.
Graceful.
At the end of that round, Clement Freud has gone to second place behind Derek Nimmo. We're going to begin the next round with Derek Nimmo. And the subject, Derek, for you is what the Romans do. Derek, will you try and tell us in 60 seconds just what they do, starting now?
The principal thing the Romans seem to do is to arrest one. Especially if one is standing on the steps of St. Peter's dressed as a monk. I was there the other day, standing there quite happily.
Juno Alexander, you've challenged. Why?
But the hesitation. His affliction was showing. Again.
My affliction wasn't showing. There's nothing to do with it.
No, I don't think it really was, Juno. No, it's a very good try. It was very nearly. It's difficult to judge sometimes. There are 47 seconds left for what the Romans do, Derek, starting now.
And this very happy father came out to me and asked me if I'd have some photographs taken with his lovely teenage daughters, and I said I'd be very happy to. And so there I stood, having a few snaps taken, when a nun, I can only say it, shocked me, because apparently she saw on the top of my head that I had a plastic tonsure on. And she reported me to the Vatican police, who came along and led me away with lots of men with spears and things, and other fellows with helmets, to underneath the Curia, where I was in prison for a long time, where people interviewed me and cross-examined me and made me take off this horrible little wig thing, put it on the middle of the table, covered with hair clips. It was terribly embarrassing, but fortunately somebody came along, an Irish priest, and identified me. The other things the Romans do is they eat spaghetti.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge? Why?
Deviation. This is Vatican and not Rome.
The Romans can include the people who work or live or otherwise in the Vatican, so I'm still with Derek Nimmo, who has another point, and there are 12 seconds left, starting now.
They also have all sorts of lovely pastas like fettuccine al burro, which I particularly like. They also have ravioli, which is a sort of...
Juno Alexander, why do you challenge? Why?
Because he's deviating, because it's what they have and not what they do.
Exactly, Juno. Very good point.
Very good.
There are 5 seconds, Juno, for what the Romans do, starting now.
Romans square shields and carry...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Deviation, that's what the Romans did, not what they do.
They do in films, they do in films.
They do in films. I was about to say they do in films, and there's maybe many Romans running about their little boudoirs in Rome doing exactly this with shields. So... As I think it was a very clever challenge, Eric, I give you a bonus point, but the subject's still with Juno, and there are 2 seconds for what the Romans do, Juno, starting now.
They also bathe in the Tiber and...
Clement Freud has challenged you, Juno.
Oh.
Why?
There seemed a very long delay.
No, there was not. Juno has another point.
Thinking about it.
And there's 1.5 seconds for what the Romans do, Juno, starting now.
They eat in restaurants and go to...
Oh, she won it!
I asked myself, is it worth it?
At the end of that round, Juno Alexander was speaking. She gains an extra point. She's gone into 3rd place behind Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. Kenneth Williams is only just in 4th place. We hope he will improve on that in the next round. But it's actually Clement Freud to begin the next round. A lovely subject for anybody to talk on, elephants. Clement, will you talk to us for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Most of the elephants that I've known come from Lowestoft, where they spend the winter on the beach and the summer in the circus. Many of them appear in a revue at the Sparrow's Nest, which has a very small stage door, so the elephants have to be disentangled and then reassembled on the stage every afternoon and evening because the shows are twice nightly. There is a circus in Yarmouth, which is some 12 miles up the road, where these animals are...
Your challenge, why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Derek, you have another point. So we'll press on as quick as we can. 31 seconds, Derek, for elephants, starting now.
But of course, the main thing is they never forget, you know. That's one of the things one always has to remember when one converses with them, do you see? Because I remember going to London Zoo, I think it was 3.5 weeks ago, and I went up to the cage and I gave this thing a bun, and I heard it whisper...
Kenneth Williams, your challenge, why?
Deviation. The elephants aren't in cages at the London Zoo.
They are at night.
This, can you justify that?
Well, they are at night. Of course, they don't be wandering around during the night. They'd lock them up, and I was a nocturnal visitor.
Out of your own mouth, you've committed yourself. You cannot be a nocturnal visitor to the zoo, so Kenneth Williams has a point.
You're a fellow, and I'm a fellow.
I'm a fellow.
You're a fellow, all right. No, on this occasion, I think it's only fair. Kenneth has another point. He has 19 seconds for elephants, starting now.
The only elephants I am familiar with are the ones that come from Ceylon, and once there, a keeper offered to let me hose them down. There were 3 or 4 of them, actually, and I took this hose in my hand, and he said to me, "Not only use the hose, mate." He said it was said in his accent. Of course, I can't do the accent. Yeah. Long time.
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Repetition, 3 hoses.
Yes, there were 3 hoses.
Well, they've got their stockings like
There were 4 elephants, there was one each.
They probably needed 3 hoses. Clement Freud has another point with 2 seconds left for elephants, starting now.
Africa and India are the 2 continents from which...
Kenneth Williams and Juno Alexander are equal in 3rd place behind Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. And Kenneth, it is your turn to begin the next round. A subject which you have dispensed many, many times. But will you now speak about it? Happiness. Happiness. Will you talk? Given the audience have gone so quiet. They've all... 60 seconds on happiness, Kenneth, starting now.
Happiness is, of course, a retrospective emotion. It is something which, if you are ever conscious... Oh, dear.
You shouldn't have stopped, Kenneth. Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. Derek, you have another point, and you have 53 seconds for happiness, starting now.
Happiness is really one of the most lovely emotions that one can possibly tumble upon. I remember going on the Great Wheel at Yarmouth one year, and I was head on... Well,
I'm sure that if you went on the... If you went on the Great Wheel at Yarmouth, you'd feel exactly like that. But Clement Freud challenged you, and we all know why. And so, Clement, you have a point. There are 43 seconds for happiness starting now.
Happiness is something of which I contain a great deal, but because...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation, he doesn't. He's very gloomy, he's very dreary, and thoroughly miserable all the time. Total deviation.
Well, unfortunately, we don't know Clement Freud all that well. He might manage to give a...
And let no...
Well, all right, this is one of those wonderful occasions when I put it to our lovely audience here. Let you
They
be the
don't
judge.
know me.
Let the audience, where they know you're not...
lucky.
You can judge about this happiness in relation to Clement Freud.
Laugh. Look, he's laughing. I've never seen him laughing.
Listeners... Clement Freud is endeavouring to smile at the audience, but he's almost cracking his beard in half. And I'm going to ask you to judge. Do you uphold Derek Nimmo's challenge? Do you agree with him? In which case, will you cheer? If you disagree with his challenge, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now?
Boo!
I think the cheers have it. I think there are more people who don't think you dispense happiness, Clement. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, I didn't think so.
Absolutely amazing. So, according to our audience, Derek Nimmo has a point. He has 34 seconds left for happiness, starting now.
Well, you see, I am totally happy, unlike that fellow Freud. He's a very dreary, miserable fellow. And I tell you what I put it down to.
Juno Alexander, you've challenged.
Well,
Why?
he's deviating because he's talking about the lovely Freud and not about happiness.
The only fair thing to do, I think, is to give you a point and leave the subject with Derek Nimmo. Happiness, Derek Nimmo. 33 seconds left, starting now.
One day at Morecambe, I went down and I paddled in the sea. And, you know, I saw little Clement, and I thought, I am happy.
Juno Alexander.
Again. He's at it again. He's talking about paddling in the sea.
Well,
and
this
not...
is happiness to
Happiness
Derek
to
Nimmo.
me.
So
Yes.
there we are. 27 seconds for happiness, Derek, starting now.
I enjoy simple pleasures. That's part of it, you see. I love going around with wreathed and smiles and dispensing a cheery what-ho to bus drivers and elephant keepers and people in the bloom of youth like Kenneth Williams. And I love rounding corners and saying, hello, old fruit, the sun's shining. Don't you feel tremendously happy today?
Kenneth Williams, why have you
Oh,
challenged?
this is all deviation. It's to do with his personal mannerisms. There's nothing to do with it. Going around shouting the old...
I think this is an impossible subject. You could well say that Clement Freud gives tremendous happiness to people. You could say that Derek Nimmo's gestures, or whatever you call them, also give tremendous happiness. So, all right, I will give you a point, and we're still with Derek Nimmo. Happiness, 11 seconds, starting now.
And sometime I go to a local dance hall and I say to a lady, would you mind giving me the pleasure, the great happiness of having a little tiny dance with me? She said, of course I would, I'd love to. And so we go into the middle of the floor and we go 1, 2, 3, and I won't say it again because that'll be repetition.
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, he gains yet another point, and Derek Nimmo has now got a commanding lead over the other three. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? It's my birthday. Derek Nimmo, will you talk about my birthday starting now?
The day happens to be my birthday, and I have a card to prove it. So I would like to sing, if I may, Happy Birthday to me. And I can't go on anymore because it would be repetition, unfortunately. But it does give me tremendous pleasure when I wake up on my morn. I've gone wrong.
Clement Freud, you have challenged.
Repetition.
Repetition. You have 35 seconds for my birthday starting now.
My birthday is on the 24th of April, and I am a Tauran, which means that I was born in the sign of the whatever it is, and am by nature humble, obedient, and one who spreads happiness. Is
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation. We've already established that he doesn't spread happiness. By popular acclaim.
Oh, what
but
do we do?
according to the sign of the zodiac.
Derek Nimmo, all right, I'll put it to the audience, because probably he does, but some people think he does. Do you think Derek Nimmo's challenge is justified? If you do, will you please cheer? If you don't approve, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? The boos have it. They're on your side this time, Clement Freud. Some definitely think that you do...
Always be nice to people when it's their birthday. They shouldn't boo.
Well, Clement Freud, we're back with you. Another point to you. My birthday, 19 seconds left, starting now.
On my birthday, I get up and have my favorite cereal with brown sugar and single cream, which I don't have on other days of the week. And I'm then allowed to choose...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Well, deviation should be on other days of the year, you see. A birthday only happens once a year, not other days of the week.
I think that's a very clever and justifiable challenge, Derek. As a point to you, 9.5 seconds left for my birthday, starting now.
So in comes my cake. They put it down in the middle of the table, full of candles, tremendous number of these flaming objects.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Because if a cake was full of candles, you couldn't eat it. A mouthful of tallow.
Yes, there we are. So Derek Nimmo's tallow birthday cake gains Kenneth Williams a point, and he has 4 seconds left for my birthday, starting now.
I sent a telegram to my parents saying, congratulations on having me. You did a very admirable and wonderful thing.
Well, Derek Nimmo's birthday brings us to the end of this particular show, I'm sorry to have to tell you. But I can give you the score at the end of that show. Juno Alexander was in 4th place, Kenneth Williams was in 3rd place, just behind Clement Freud in 3rd place, and a very definitely overwhelming winner, today's birthday fellow, Derek Nimmo. So it is a happy birthday to the happy victor of this particular game. We do hope that you've enjoyed it, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiver and produced by David Hatch. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Teddy Beverley in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, we welcome to the game to speak up for the ladies, Teddy Beverley. And I hope she can speak out well against these 3 old lags at the game. The rules are, as before, I'm going to ask each one to speak for just a minute if they can on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating in any way from the subject, if they can. If the others think they fail, they will press their buzzer and challenge them. If I uphold the challenge, then they will gain a point and take over the subject for the remaining 60 seconds. And if I don't uphold their challenge, then whoever is speaking will gain a point and continue with the subject. That is the way we score. That is the way we endeavour to play the game. The rest should become evident as we continue. And let us start with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth. It looks as if it's going to be your day today, Kenneth. Kenneth, the subject for you is the things I say. Can you speak for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Some of the things I say are curiously idiosyncratic. I have made expressions like your actual really quite famous, and I'm almost known for your actual. Many people have said whenever I hear you, I always think of your actual.
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
Repetition of your actual.
Yes, well, that is perfectly correct. He said it actually 3 times. So Derek Nimmo has gained a point, and there are 42 seconds left for him. Yes, Kenneth Williams feels very hurt about this. He had so much more to say. But I'm afraid the rules are the rules, and Derek Nimmo, you have 42 seconds for the things I say, starting now.
Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. There came a big spider and sat down.
Teddy Beverley, you've challenged. Why?
I'm not altogether sure you're saying you're reciting, aren't you?
Oh, yes, brilliant.
Well, there's our new girl jumping right into the guinea and getting a very well-deserved point. Teddy, there are 34 seconds left for the things I say, starting now.
Yes, well, I'm not sure I'm going to say anything either. I think I'll sing as you recited. But the things I say, I'm afraid, are always really rather silly, you know. Being one of the ladies, I say things like, how do you do? When I meet people, I say goodbye when I leave them. I say good morning when I wake up in the morning, and I say good night at night.
Clement, Freud, you challenge what?
Repetition.
What?
Good, 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 good.
Oh, no, they were a test
Right.
word.
Yes, it was a
No,
repetition.
is good morning a word and good night
I'm
a
afraid
word?
they are two separate words, yes. Some
Yes.
people do hyphenate them, but I think within the rules of the game it is absolutely correct. So Clement Freud has a point, and there are 18 seconds left for the things I say, Clement, starting now.
The things I say to my bank manager are, please, could I have some more money? Because...
Kenneth Williams, why do you
Deviation is the things I say, not the things I say to my bank manager.
Well, I'm afraid, you know, one takes the subject and the things I say, and you can say them to anybody. So I'm afraid Clement Freud has another point, and he has 13 seconds left for the things I say, starting now.
2 pints of milk, 1 yogurt, and 3 pints of...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Deviation, you couldn't possibly say that to his bank manager.
I bank with my milkman.
He might, but none of us believe it. So, Derek Nimmo, you have another point because your challenge was correct. There are 10 seconds left for the things I say, starting now.
When I get up in the morning, I say, round about the houses lived a little bear. The bear's name was Teddy, and what the...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
2 bears.
Clement Freud, you listened so well. Another point to you, Clement. 5 seconds left for the things I say, starting now.
A £5 note and 3 pounds in silver, also copper.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
£2.
Well...
£1 and a £5.
5? Kenneth Williams has a point.
Oh,
Kenneth, you have a point. And Kenneth Williams continues with the subject for 3 seconds on the things I say, starting now.
Well, they include here, stop messing about. I've often said that.
You know, Kenneth Williams started with this subject. I'm sure he was dying to get back with it.
I
just to
should have had
say-
it all the time.
Yes, I know.
It would have been taken
It
from
was
me.
building up to the stop messing about.
Did I win?
Yes. Kenneth, no, where are we? Oh, yes, the score at the end of the first round.
Have I won?
No, we've got about 6 more rounds to go yet, Kenneth. Can you stay with us?
Well, I'm in the lead.
No, you're in second place.
Yeah, you should. It's not bad, is it?
Not bad, no. I must explain to our listeners that Kenneth Williams was so disbelieving he had to leave his chair the other side of the stage and rush up to mine to make sure. But Ian Messiter scores very, very well. Clement Freud is 1 point lead over Kenneth Williams and Derek Nimmo, and they have 1 point lead over Teddy Beverley. It's terribly exciting at this point, isn't it? Good. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? It's a long one.
Oh, dear.
What to look for in a good second-hand car. Have you established that long thought? Derek Nimmo, because we'd like to try and talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now.
Well, of course, it rather depends what you look for in a good second-hand car and how good it is. Now, if you get a Rolls Royce, the most important thing to do...
Teddy Beverley, you've challenged. Why?
Did he not say good twice?
Yes, but it's a good second-hand car, and it's on the card, so he's allowed to say it. So Derek Nimmo has another point. He has 52 seconds left for what to look for in a good second-hand car, starting now.
Having seen one of these aforementioned machines, I leap into the back seat, tear it up, and look for half-crowns. Now, you'll be surprised how many you find. Occasionally, threepenny pieces. And then, another thing to look for is a carpet. Now, if the carpet is good and clean, you will be as at loss for words as I am at this moment.
Clement Freud, you've challenged, yes. He's lost for words with his own admission. Clement Freud has another point, and there are 26 seconds for what to look for in a good second-hand car, starting now.
The most important thing to look for in a second-hand car is an engine, because they have this nasty habit of hardly going...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation, by definition, it couldn't be a good second-hand car if it didn't have an engine.
Yes, but you see, we've also established it is second-hand.
But it couldn't be a good second-hand car unless it had an engine.
My very
could
point.
be a good
The exact point.
I maintain, in spite of what the audience say, that a second-hand car could be good, the condition could be good, but the engine could not be good. You see, second-hand means it is not new, it is not good in that sense. So I am still with Clement Freud, who has another point and 20 seconds left for the subject, starting now.
Danish blue cheese sandwiches are great.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. We're not going to good second-hand cars. Danish blue cheese sandwiches. Load of rubbish.
Kenneth Williams, you have a point, and you have 16 seconds left for Danish blue cheese sandwiches.
No, it's not the subject.
Clement Freud is threatening Kenneth Williams with a very early challenge with his buzzer right beneath his nose. We'll see how Kenneth Williams stands up to this intimidation as he continues talking for 16 seconds on what to look for in a good second-hand car, starting now.
I wouldn't have a car on my first hand, let alone my second hand. I don't believe in them anyway, but if I were looking for anything in such a vehicle, I would certainly have a good look at the interior mechanism. When you lift the bonnet, you can always tell straight away whether the thing has been well looked after.
I'm sure that all the followers of Kenneth Williams will be surprised to hear that he's now in second place behind Clement Freud.
Second place!
Clement Freud, it's your turn. Will you begin the next round? The dog next door. What a marvellous subject. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
The dog next door is a cross between a Great Dane and a Pekingese. And many people passing by wonder how it was possible to achieve such a mixture. Our neighbours, who are the proprietors of this animal...
Teddy Beverley, why have you challenged?
Don't you think there was some deviation there?
I think there's a lot of deviation. I think, to be fair within this game, Clement Freud, I think, is about to try and explain. So what I must do is give you a bonus point for a clever challenge and leave the subject with Clement Freud with 46 seconds left for the dog next door, starting now.
Okay.
When Mr. and Mrs. Featherstone, who live in the house to our right, are asked...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
I doubt if Mrs. Featherstone is a dog. Deviation.
But they might be the owners of the dog. I don't think he quite justified the situation. I think that was a too abrupt challenge. You must give someone a chance.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, so... Clement Freud has another point on that situation, and there are 42 seconds left for the dog next door, starting now.
Are asked to explain how this strange marriage came about. They bring a 6-foot box and say, this is how it happened. And this box is very well known in the neighborhood and is called the mating block. The Great Dane, who was the father of the aforementioned animal, barks all night. This is boring and tire-making, and many of us...
I think it's totally disgusting. Absolute vintage Freud filth.
I think it's devious, but also he hesitated like me.
Oh, hesitation is
Yes,
very
no, you've got to
Yes.
abide by the rules, haven't you?
Yes, well, all right, so he's got him in 2 points. Derek Nimmo, you have a point. There are 17 seconds left for the dog next door, starting now.
The dog next door to me is a thoroughbred British bulldog of splendor unique. He goes out every morning with a Union Jack coat on his back, led by a red, white, and blue lead. He goes along the street with his head held high.
I suppose there are different ways of playing to the audience, and Derek Nimmo's got a very good one, appealing to their British instincts. A tremendous round of applause. Derek gets a bonus point at the end, not a bonus point, an extra point. For those who may be listening for the first time, if I haven't established, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, telling us that 60 seconds is up, gets an extra point. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round and try and talk for 60 seconds on the subject of winkles? Starting now.
They are not a food I would care to eat myself, but I do know people who enjoy them enormously, and one particular friend of mine used to take great pleasure in taking the pin and pulling them out and piling them up in this grotesque mess on a plate with all the empty shells beside. And these things laying there looked horrible. I used to sit there, how can you eat them? And look like worms on your plate. How can you eat all nutritious, he said. Every one of these contains your essential vitamins. You could live off them, and if you drank champagne with it, you'd have all your necessary proteins to keep you in good health and body fibre, limbs, stout of wind, wind of
Out of them and...
I can't finish.
It was so lovely, though, wasn't it? And the audience showed their appreciation. You went for 45 seconds without being interrupted. That's jolly good.
Yeah, but I'm the challenge.
Clement Freud challenged. Didn't
To
he?
win, yes, indeed.
Oh, yes, and you've challenged for what?
All those wins.
I have to establish it with the listeners because some
Repetition.
of them... Yes, so people do write in sometimes and say why, and we can't remember a long time later. So, Clement Freud, you have another point. You have 15 seconds left for Winkles, starting now.
I can't get my winkle out. Oh, isn't
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Vintage Freudian filth.
I think, to be fair to Clement Freud, you can't challenge for filth. So Clement Freud has another point, and he continues for the next 13 seconds on Winkles, starting now.
Oh, isn't it a doer? I can't get it out with an old bent pin. Has anyone here got a skewer? These are the words of an early Victorian song called Winkles, which was sung in Southend and...
For the sake of good taste, I am so pleased that Clement Freud was able to go back and continue what he started to say. Clement Freud, with his little dissertation on Winkles, has gone into the lead. And Teddy Beverley, will you begin the next round? How to be good, Teddy? That's the subject, and will you start now?
Ah, yes. Well, do you mean pure, like Derek Nimmo here? Or do you mean good at it, like Kenneth Williams would have us believe? You see, to be good, I'd say, for a girl would be to see a mink coat in a shop window and start saving up for it. And then, of course, you see, it depends what you mean by good, because if you were good to your sugar daddy, I think then your real daddy would think you were bad, you see. And I'm very glad you asked me this, because I've really always been so very, very good. It's a wonder.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, repetition of good at this stage.
Yes, we have had
three.
a little bit too much of the goodness. So, Derek, you have another point. You have 34 seconds left for How to Be Good, starting now.
I get up early in the morning. I brush my hair carefully. I clean my teeth and show them to my mummy.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. This is an endless catalogue again of Derek Nimmo's personal hygiene. We get every week this personal hygiene. He's always on about when he gets up and brushes this and combs the other.
You've made your point,
Yes.
and it is probably Derek's way of starting the day out to be good. So I think I must be fair and give him another point and say there are 27 seconds left for Derek Nimmo to continue telling us how to be good, starting now.
And then I walk out into the street and hand 6 brand new shiny pennies to the nearest beggar that I see waiting there. I get onto a bus and I pay my fare as I walk the...
Clement Freud, you challenge. Hesitation, Clement, you have another point. 14 seconds for how to be good, starting now.
The best way to do this is to avoid being bad. Going around, speaking nicely to kind people, helping old women across the street, children...
Kenneth Williams, you challenge.
Helping old women across the street, deviation. Helping old women across the street is not good. It may be very many things. It may be charitable, it may be very kind, but it has nothing to do with goodness.
Kenneth, you make your points with such aplomb, everybody thinks you must be right, but I think there is an element of goodness in that.
Well, I hadn't spoken for hours.
I know. And when you do it so well, don't you? But you could have had him for hesitation. I'd have allowed that, but it's too late now.
I
No,
meant to say that. I was about to say that.
Yes, I know you were, but it's too late now, I'm afraid. So there are 4 seconds left, another point to Clement Freud, for him to continue on how to be good, starting now.
Patting children on the head and calling on my parents asking if I might clean their shoes.
Well, at the end of that round, Clement Freud has jumped into a very definite lead. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? The subject is parking. Can you talk on that subject? 60 seconds starting now.
I drove my Austin 7 up to the side of the street and said to the lady with the yellow hat on, would it be all right if I left my machine here? And she said, of course. How awfully nice of you to ask me first. Well, I always do that because I like to try to be good. So I got out of the car, first of all removing my winkle picker shoes, and then I saw the funniest thing at the side of the road. The dog next door. Now, you'll be terribly surprised. And the funny thing was to know who was leading it, my sisters. And there they were, with the Mother Superior.
Clement, Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation, he hasn't been on parking for a very long time.
No, you're quite right. We were so enjoying it, we've forgotten about that, haven't we? Well done, Clement Freud. You concentrate so well. Another point to Clement Freud. 24 seconds left for parking, starting now.
This is something for which it's almost essential to have a car, though having a good second-hand vehicle is a help. You draw into the...
Kenneth and his wife who challenged.
Deviation, it is not necessary to have a car to park. You can park yourself in a chair.
Well done, Kenneth.
Almost.
So, Kenneth Williams has another point, and he takes over the subject of parking. 15.5 seconds left, starting now.
Well, I once did this myself in another friend's car, and the lady come put her head through the door and said, "Here, you've been here over your prescribed time." And I said, "But darling, is there really any prescribed time?"
Oh, Clement Freud, you've
That's
challenged.
what we were doing in the... What?
He's challenged.
Repetition?
Yes.
Well, you've done yourself out of a very good anecdote, dear.
All right, finish the anecdote and then we'll go back to the game.
I can't, I just realised it's dirty.
Yeah. Anything as prescribed as that must be.
And I've just realised I'm really much too young for all this. I don't think...
Absolutely, but you're doing very well, Teddy. You're doing very well. You're still in there with a chance. And there are 4 seconds left for Clement Freud on parking, starting now.
Many major cities have regulations limiting the amount of time which one is...
At the end of that round, Clement Freud, who's speaking, gets another point, and he's also increased his lead over the other 3, who are all about equal in second place. Clement Freud, a delightful subject, fascinating one for you, and very interesting, I think the results are going to be, because Ian Mester's thought of the subject of neology. Clement Freud, would you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something which I've always been very good at, because frequently, neologically speaking, I have been the person responsible...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Well, repetition. He's speaking frequently, neologically.
He's speaking frequently, yes, but he's not speaking repetitiously. So therefore he has another point, and he has 50 seconds left, starting now.
What I've said has gone down in the annals of neology. I can do no better than to quote a certain occasion when I was in Walberswick in East Suffolk and our village team were entertaining Lowestoft Railways. I was batting number 6, or to coin a phrase, I was in the middle order of our side. The bowler from the other end came up.
Kenneth Williams, you challenge. Why?
Deviation, what's this got to do with neology?
Absolutely nothing at all. And I don't think Kenneth Williams has any idea about it, but anyway, Kenneth, you have 35 seconds left, 6 seconds left for neology, starting now.
I certainly do have every idea about neology, and I know exactly what it is. It is the study of things which are new, insofar as when they came about, they
Clement
were
Freud, you've
innovative.
challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Entirely right. Clement Freud, you take over the subject of neology with 23 seconds left, starting now.
Dr. Stanley Proustinghouse was probably one of the great authorities on this subject.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Is deviation.
Yes, absolutely right. He had nothing to do with the subject. Derek Nimmo, you take over for 17 seconds the subject neology, starting
The
now.
interesting thing about neology is a completely made-up word, not to be found in any dictionary whatsoever. And so, therefore, if one wants to talk about it, one has to talk absolute rubbish.
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation. Just said it.
What?
Just hesitated.
He didn't hesitate. Did he hesitate?
Didn't you hear him, Teddy? Didn't you hear you're sitting next to him?
No. Unfortunately, he was being devious, and I was listening to this so carefully. He didn't hesitate, as far as I remember. So Derek Nimmo still has the subject, with 10 seconds left for neology, starting now.
The way that you spell this word is N-E-O-L, the same letter that I just said, G-Y, which makes it a rather interesting word, because if you find...
Clement Freud, you've challenged one.
Word. 3 words in...
Yes, indeed. So Clement Freud has another point. He has 2 seconds left for neology, starting now.
This is the study of coining phrases.
Clement Freud has got a commanding lead at the end of that run. We did hope that they would all challenge like mad, because we wondered if any of them knew what it was. I don't think actually any of them do know what it means from what they were saying. The actual neology means the science of words. So
I thought it was the study of knees.
Teddy Bear, you didn't speak. Ah, yes.
Study of knees, yes.
Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject is paddling. 60 seconds, starting now.
Quite recently, when I was on holiday, I had occasion to walk or promenade, as some people would have it, a long, wide, and very beautiful sandy beach. And this friend said, the only thing against our promenading in this fashion is that you do come to effluence. I said, oh dear, what on earth are they? And he said, it is a place where sewage discharges into the sea. And you have to be very careful about treading in such water. I said, oh no, because I've been told that saline matter always purifies germs within a matter of seconds. So when we came to this thing, I simply took off my shoes and socks and waded forthwith into this effluent. But unfortunately, it was deeper in the middle than I had anticipated. In I went, the trousers were soaked. And when I came back to this beach cafe to have the cup of tea, which we were gone all that way for, you understand, oh, they said, what's happened to you?
If you take in the last series of Just a Minute and this one, it is a very long time since anybody has managed to speak for 60 seconds without being interrupted and do it so well. So, because not only does he get 2 points, but as he did it so well, we decided to give him an extra bonus point. 3 points.
Oh, well, that must
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular game of Just a Minute. Let me give you the final score. Teddy Beverley, who, after all, hasn't played against these 3 experienced people before, was in 4th place, but she did jolly well. And in 2nd place, equal, a little bit in front of Teddy, were Kenneth Williams and Derek Nimmo. But about a dozen points ahead of them was this week's winner, Clement Freud. Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. Goodbye from all of us here.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you just heard, we welcome back Sheila Hancock, who was so successful when she represented the ladies in our show before. The 3 men are just the same, so I won't mention their names again, and the rules are just the same. I'm going to ask each one of our contestants to try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. With those thoughts in our mind, let us begin this particular edition with Derek Nimmo. Derek, would you try and talk for 60 seconds on bloomers? Starting now.
Well, there seem to me to be two kinds of bloomers, those that you wear and those that you make. I think I'll start with the latter, actually. I seem to have made rather considerable bloomer quite recently, and it happened by the merest mischance. And I was carted off to a hospital, bleeding from every nose, and confronted with an Indian doctor who said, "Tell me, please, what happened?" And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I said I was standing in a church on a plank which was leaning across a log. He said, "Would you mind repeating that?" And I said, well, I was on this piece of wood which...
Clement Freud, you have challenged. Why?
Repetition.
Of what?
Would you mind repeating that?
You said that, but it was such a good story. I wanted to hear the
Right,
end.
I'll take it back.
No. I mean, I think, would you mind repeating that, is a repetitious phrase, but he hadn't actually repeated it. Therefore, he is not, your challenge is not justified.
Yeah, what happened to him?
Well, then it's up to you to see whether you want to challenge again.
No,
Therefore, I
I'd like to.
don't uphold your challenge, Clement Freud. Derek Nimmo gains a point, and he continues for 25 seconds with the subject, starting now.
And the sergeant said to me, he said, "What happened?" So I said, well, I was standing there, and then two monks jumped off the top of the altar onto the other end of the piece of wood. He said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't quite catch what you were saying." Well, I said, there were these two fellows. He said, "Do you mean they were brothers?" I said, "Yes." And they jumped onto the other piece of wood, and I was supposed to go up in the air and grab hold of a chandelier.
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking, when the whistle went, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, he gains an extra point. And also, it's interesting to note that he did actually go for the full 60 seconds on the subject. Sheila Hancock, will you begin this round? The subject is having my hair done. 60 seconds on that subject, starting now.
Well, whenever I do, it's always a disaster. I sit there under the dryer watching everybody else going out looking absolutely super, and I never do. A little gentleman asked me the story of my life, and I'm inclined to tell it. There's something about it.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation. She said, rather than hair.
1 point to you, Derek Nimmo, and there are 46 seconds left for having my hair done, starting now.
Well, of course, I absolutely adore having my hair done. I had it done today, and they did in little sort of tongues. They put it all round, did in little sort of curls, and it came out very beautifully.
Sheila Hancock, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, it's very kinky.
That's a very clever challenge, and I think this is on those occasions where I give you a bonus point for cleverness, but within the context.
So I should think.
That was Kenneth Williams speaking for the first time. A bonus point for cleverness, but I don't think it's correct within the rules of the game, so Derek Nimmo continues talking about having my hair done. 34 seconds, starting now.
Well, first of all, I'd like them to wash it, you see. I think it's awfully nice, really, when they plunge your head into a bowl of warm water. And
Sheila Hancock, you have challenged.
Deviation from the truth.
Well, we don't know how Derek Nimmo has his hair washed. He might have it plunged
Nobody
into
plunges their head into a bowl of water in the hairdressers. You have sprays and things.
not
Yes.
in the gents.
You
Only in the
well, I
ladies.
hope
Well,
you
I
don't have
would
your
honestly.
hair washed in the gents.
If that's where you have your hair done, I think you should keep quiet about it. Sheila, as you haven't been with us for a very long time, it's very debatable, but I think I will give you the benefit of the doubt and award you a point and 25 seconds for having my hair done, starting now.
Yes, well, these gentlemen in flowered blouses.
With Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Very unfair show. I mean, I have a stutter. It's just unkind, isn't it?
Sitting next to Derek Nimmo,
It's
you
my
obviously say-
stutter, and it was a hesitation.
And Clement Freud is challenged for the stutter. He has the subject, 1 point to him, 22 seconds for my having my hair done, starting now.
With the amount of hair that I have, you may well think that I do not have to have it done as often as other people, which is completely false. Simply because there's no affluence on the top of my head, there is a very considerable growth.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. Hair is hair. It's certainly not affluent.
What do you say, Clement Freud?
I didn't say effluence, I said affluence of hair.
I never suggested you did say effluence. I said affluence. Air isn't affluence. That's what I said. I haven't spoken on this show yet. It's a disgrace.
Well, Kenneth, all I can say
Go on
is
a bit.
we've heard you now. You've made a great impact on the audience. They loved every minute of what you said. But I keep the subject with Clement Freud, who has another point and 8 seconds for having my hair done starting now.
Hairdressers now tend to charge 10 shillings or more for cutting my hair, which I think is an outrageous sum, but they demand this and I pay it.
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking, when the whistle went, it tells us that he has an extra point. And I'll give you the score at the end of that round. Clement Freud is in the lead alongside Derek Nimmo, and one behind is Sheila Hancock, and a little bit behind is Kenneth Williams. In other words, Kenneth has yet to score.
No, don't rub it in.
But they've only got an odd point here and there, Kenneth. You'll come from the back with that charge that you usually give us.
Leap into it.
And Kenneth, it's your turn to begin.
Oh,
This may be your
good.
moment. Kenneth Williams, beautiful thoughts.
Oh.
Will you try and talk for 60 seconds on that subject starting now?
Beautiful thoughts can, of course, be brought about by beautiful happenings, or they can be brought about by reading something quite lovely. A line like somewhere in my heart, a late lark singing. That, of course, does inspire a tremendous serenity in one's inner thoughts. And this leads, of course, to repose. And perhaps this is the true goal of all great beauty. And perhaps no one could put it more beautifully than...
Sheila Hancock, why have you
Somebody's got to stop him. It's so embarrassing, isn't it?
It may be embarrassing, but he's still playing the game. Kenneth Williams has another point. He has 23 seconds for his beautiful thoughts starting now.
To take, as it were, the chaff and grain together, knowing that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness blow the
Clement
rest
Freud, you've
away.
challenged why?
Deviation, there's nothing about beautiful thoughts.
I think it's lovely. The audience are loving it. It's a beautiful thoughts, aren't they? Yes. They think these thoughts are beautiful. What they mean, I have no idea, but the audience thinks they're beautiful. So Kenneth Williams has another point, 10 seconds for beautiful thoughts starting now.
And so there, in the innermost citadel...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged why?
Repetition, and so there.
And so there doesn't count in this game. A lot of nonsense. We can't challenge for silly things. 8 seconds for beautiful thoughts, Kenneth, starting now.
There where the corrupt...
Derek Nimmo's challenged why?
Favoritism from the chairman.
Shut your mouth!
Charming! Listen to all those beautiful thoughts. You shut your mouth.
No, that's another thing.
Derek wants me to give him another point, so Kenneth has another point, and he has now 6 seconds for beautiful thoughts starting now.
To think of something lovely at one moment can make the next period of time even more lovely. And this is why it's good of you to say.
How beautiful those thoughts are, I'm not fit to judge, but they seem to spark off something which the audience that made me feel I was right to let Kenneth Williams continue. And in doing so, he has jumped into a commanding lead over all the others. I'll leave it at that, and we'll press on with Clement Freud. It is your turn to begin. Clement, the subject is manners. Will you try and speak on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Manners is something people say when you belch or make other unseemly noises. It is also the family name of the Dukes of Rutland, for which the word might be more renowned. But many people think that to acquire these, you have to go to a school or possibly an academy of deportment, where all sorts of unnatural things are taught one in order that one can go into society and be accepted as someone one is not. Thank you.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
It's the end of a sentence.
End of a sentence, a full stop and a definite period, I would say.
Yes.
29 seconds left for manners. Derek Nimmo, starting now.
Little Hallam Hall is my favourite manor. It's a beautiful half-timbered building which stands in...
Kenneth Williams, you challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
It's manners, isn't it? And it's not manner.
No, but he is talking
manner.
about one. He said this hall was his favourite manor, so it's one of many. So I think it's perfectly justified in giving Derek a point, leaving the subject with him. 22 seconds left. Manners starting now.
Terribly interesting way that police sergeants, constables, and even inspectors refer to their particular beat as their manor. In fact, within the central London district, I believe there are 9 manors belonging to different branches of the constabulary. This becomes terribly useful when they're fighting their endless wars with hippie population, Hells Angels, and skinheads.
Well, as Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, that means he has another point, and it puts him in the lead alongside Kenneth Williams at the end of that round. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? The thing I found in the attic. That is the subject that dear Messer has chosen for you, and will you begin now?
On the 14th of July, 1959, I first found my thing in the attic. I was totally unsuspecting what I might see that day until a nearby builder happened to arrive and rapped tattered on my door to tell me that something peculiar was awaiting my inspection in the aforementioned part of the house. I rapidly climbed the stairs and opened the door, and sure enough, lurking under a bundle of old clothing, curtains and material, something moved, something throbbed, a thing squirmed. When the shrouds were pulled back, I saw it for the first time. I thought, oh my, oh, how terrible, how frightening. And there it was. It had 3 of everything.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition, 3 of everything.
A very clever
Need
challenge.
any of-
I award you a bonus point, but Derek Nimmo continues with the subject with 1 second. The thing I found in the attic starting now.
So I got out my notebook.
Derek is now in the lead, a little ahead of Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud following, and then Sheila Hancock. Clement, will you begin the next round? Spare time money-making. A very good subject for you, I'm sure, and will you talk about it 60 seconds starting now?
It is, of course, illegal to make money in your spare time, because only the Royal Mint is allowed to produce coinage of this country, and anyone who would do this in their spare time would be flagrantly breaking the law. A different interpretation of the question could also be informed as making money in the...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes. You were very quick pressing your buzzer, so you're the first one in, and you gain a point, and there are 37 seconds for spare time money-making starting now.
I once sold liver cleansing liquid in my spare time, but also in Petticoat Lane. And I had a little bottle which said 100% aqua pura on it, which I sold for 1/6 a bottle. And it wasn't really defrauding the public because, in fact, water is the final liver cleansing room.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I'm afraid your stutter gave you a hesitation, which gives Clement the subject back. 21 seconds starting now.
One of the best exponents of this was a friend of mine called Hepplethwaite, who went into Regent's Park and started a game of rounders. He asked everyone who was participating in this to put 4 and 6pence into a pool, promising to give 12 and 9pence to whichever player was on the winning side at the end of the 35-minute period when...
What happened to Hepplethwaite, Clement Freud?
The whistle blew.
It was one of those. It shows you how all of it is thought up on the spur of the moment. Clement Freud, you're still 1 point behind Derek Nimmo at the end of that round, and that is the situation at the moment. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round striking a happy medium? That is the subject. Will you talk for 60 seconds if you can, starting now?
Well, of course, I first saw Blithe Spirit when I was 17.5 years old. And in that play, there is a happy medium, one Madame Marcati. And the curious thing was, towards the end of the first act, I leapt up onto the stage and, grabbing a walking stick in one hand, I smote her roundly across the brow. And she was the most surprised happy medium that I've ever seen. Another definition of the word is the sort of strive to find a sort of equilibrium between two things and one...
Kenneth Williams, why you challenge?
To a sort of repetition.
Kenneth, you have a point,
Yes,
and there
high
are
time
30
to.
seconds left for striking a happy medium starting now.
This, of course, brings us back to what the Greeks originally propounded, that there was indeed a golden mean for all activities.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged why?
Hesitation. He's going so slowly these days.
I'm going to let
He
the
used to be
audience...
quite chirpy when he was young.
It's very difficult to judge, you know, when you're in this position on any challenge sometimes. But when they start, and they've all done it in this particular show, go so slowly, you can't judge whether they're hesitating by the slowness. I'll let the audience judge once again. If you consider that Derek Nimmo's challenge was justified and his slowness was tantamount to hesitation, will you please cheer? If you disagree with the challenge, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? I think it was entirely equal, so,
Striking a happy medium, you say.
So, audience. Derek has put it for us, and I will award no points, but leave the subject with Kenneth Williams. 13 seconds left for striking a happy medium starting now.
Because any kind of excess is to be deplored. People that go about losing their tempers and shouting the odds. It's a disgrace. It won't get us anywhere, will it? No, only by reason and sitting down calmly and working it all out, one after the other.
We're at an interesting stage of play. Kenneth Williams and Derek Nimmo in the lead, and Clement Freud's 1 point behind them, and a little way behind that is Sheila Hancock. Sheila, it is your turn to begin the next round. The subject has been, I'm sure... Anyway, it's a subject that I would have chosen for you, Sheila, beauty. Will you please talk on that subject if you can? 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, if you look at me, you see the antithesis of the word that we're talking about.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
I wanted that extra point.
All you have done is given...
deviation.
No,
She was
you're
talking
too
about
late now.
unbeauty.
You've made your challenge.
I didn't make it.
Well, even for deviation, I wouldn't have it. Sheila Hancock has another point, and she continues with 57 seconds, beauty starting now.
However, they do say, bow!
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Hesitation.
It was hesitation, but you were intimidating her, so I won't award any points and leave the subject.
He does intimidate me,
Sheila,
you're
the
right.
subject is beauty. Don't be intimidated by the subject. You have every reason to speak out on the subject, and you start now.
Well, Nicholas Parsons has a beautiful nature because he's very...
Clement Freud, challenge.
Deviation.
I disagree entirely. So Sheila Hancock has another point, beauty. 46 seconds starting now.
And what's more, he has a beautiful face, and so has Kenneth Williams, and so has Derek Nimmo, but Clement Freud has not. Mind you, he has got a beautiful beard. I suppose you'll have to allow him that, but then it's made up for the lack of hair on the top of his head. I have a beautiful nature, and they do say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and lots of people, when they behold me, must think I'm not quite as bad as I think I am myself. Beauty is the name of a horse as well, who was black, and I used to read it when I was little, and it was a very beautiful book. And
Clement Freud, you've challenged why?
Reputation. We've really had too many beauties.
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm afraid we have, Sheila, but we were loving it. So Clement Freud this time really has a point, and he has 16 seconds for beauty, starting now.
This is something, a word given to explain...
Kenneth Williams, hesitation. Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 11 seconds for beauty, starting now.
I am beautiful, simply beautiful. I am when a rose sees me coming.
Clement Freud, you've challenged why?
Oh, my physical charms are so ample. I set Helen of Troy an example.
Right,
well,
that's all right. You've been challenged. You've been challenged long before you got to Helen of Troy.
Repetition.
But we wanted to hear what Helen...
You're allowed the subject twice, only said
No,
twice.
you said beautiful twice.
It's the subject, you great fool.
No,
No,
the
it's
subject is beauty.
Kenneth, shh, quiet, restrain your beauty, please. The subject is beauty. You did say beautiful twice. Clement Freud has another point. There are 9 seconds for beauty with Clement Freud starting now.
If you look at Sheila Hancock, I doubt whether anywhere else will you see a physiognomy made up of so perfect features, 2 eyes...
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went then, he gets the extra point, which means he has now won in the lead over Derek Nimmo and Kenneth Williams, and Sheila Hancock has caught up a little. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Charm. Kenneth. charm. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, this is something people can possess, or on the other hand, it can be a thing. And in some rites and certain rituals, these things are hung on people with the idea that by...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation. The word is charm, not charms.
Yes, but
a charm can be hung on someone, you great
right.
Oh, you're showing plenty of
These things, he said.
He said these
Word
things.
is singular.
Now listen, I'm going to judge.
You had your manner, didn't you?
You had your manner. You're not showing any of your manners now, either.
Manners.
You can have a single charm, one of many charms. Kenneth has, of course, many, but he's made his point. And he has another point, and he has 47 seconds for charm starting now.
And when I was in Ephesus, they come up to me and they said, "You've heard about these rituals? Well, we're going to hang one on you." I said, "Oh, how dreadful." They said, "No, for fortune and good luck will come your way, you see." So I went through all this and they shoved me in this water. Well, of course it was October. I was freezing. Good luck it may have bought me, but I got double pneumonia. I was back in the general hospital.
Clement
within
Freud, why have you
14
challenged?
Repetition.
Of what?
Pneumonia.
You only said pneumonia once.
Yes, but he said double pneumonia.
It's a very clever challenge, and at this delicate stage of the game, I can't award any bonus points. It's not really correct within the context of the game and the rules, so Kenneth Williams, I tell you what I will do, I won't charge any points. And therefore Kenneth continues with the subject. 23 seconds left for charm, starting now.
So still with it hanging round my neck, I went through all the
Derek
reparations.
Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition, still with it hanging around his neck. He said neck before, do you see?
Yes, he did say that once before. So Derek Nimmo takes over the subject. 1 point to him. 19 seconds, Derek, for charm, starting now.
Charm comprised a minute.
Kenneth, I must tell you that you shouldn't be so keen about Clement Freud getting in with that challenge, because there's only 1 point separating all three of the men. And this means that Clement has an extra point now, and he's now in the lead, and there are only 17 seconds left for charm with Clement Freud starting now.
Of all the qualities in a human being, charm is the one that I admire most. I've met bad manners. I've met Derek Nimmo. I have...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation, being rude to me. Very nasty.
Agent, there can't be deviation in this game. You can be rude to whoever you like. In fact, you incessantly are. And so all I can say is Clement Freud has another point, and there are 9 seconds for charm Clement starting now.
And the beautiful manners which are so...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Second time
I did say manners.
Yes, you did say manners. So Derek Nimmo has a point, and there are 6 seconds left for charm Derek starting now.
Every morning when I get up, you know, I look in the mirror and I say, "Gosh, you are the most charming fellow."
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Repetition.
What of?
Every morning.
It's a clever challenge, and in the last round I don't award any bonus points. I just compliment you on your cleverness. Leave the subject with Derek. No points awarded. Derek Nimmo, 1 point left for charm starting now.
Bloomers.
Derek Freud got in again.
Hesitation.
There was no hesitation. Derek Nimmo, you have half a second left for charm starting now.
Striking a happy medium.
The result of all those false starts leaves the final situation in a very interesting stage, because we have come to the end of this particular edition of Just a Minute. Sheila Hancock was in 4th place, but the 3 men were only 1 point separating him in this order. Kenneth Williams, 1 point behind Derek Nimmo, 1 point behind Clement Freud, this week's winner. That is all we have time for. We do hope that you have enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. Goodbye from us all here. Goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Geraldine Jones in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, we have the four most experienced exponents of the game who are going to try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. And if one of the others thinks they're guilty of one of these crimes, they may challenge them by pressing the buzzer which they hold in their hands. If I uphold their challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. And if I don't uphold their challenge, the person speaking gains a point and continues with the subject. Clement Freud, will you begin this particular round? The subject is interviewing a secretary. Can you talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
Before you can interview a secretary, you have to put an advertisement into a paper in which you say Clement Freud is looking for a non-smoking, non-clock-watching secretary who will work and drive cars and be generally nice about the house. And you get an awful lot of answers, mostly from people who smoke and don't drive cars, who say, I'm sure if you employ me, I could get to become all you want. You cross all those, you delete all those from your list, and you send to the others the sort...
Derek Nimmo, you pressed your buzzer, you challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I perfectly agree. And as Derek
Well, you've
Nimmo...
got to hesitate a bit before you can interview a secretary. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I quite agree, Clement, but you cannot hesitate when you're playing this game. Derek Nimmo wins a point. He takes over the subject for the next 25 seconds, if he can, starting now.
Do sit down in that swivel leather chair, Priscilla, while I proceed to interview, I say.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, there were two. You very kindly overlooked the first one, and the second one you took him up with 20 seconds left. For interviewing a secretary, Clement, you begin now.
Ideally, you want to make the job as unattractive as possible, because all jobs become pretty ropey when you get up.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
We haven't actually got to the interview yet. We're still on advertisements.
No, it's a very clever try. It's one of those things that's very difficult to decide.
That's because she has a large family from Liverpool, it is.
The decision has been taken out of my hands by what Clement Freud claims is a large family from Liverpool, which is Geraldine's home, of course. So, Geraldine, you have a point, and so you take over the subject with 13 seconds left, starting now.
My biggest problem when interviewing a secretary is that most of them are women, and of course this gives me a natural disadvantage, because in the position of prospective employer, I appear to be militant and careerist and rather
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
There was a definite hesitation. You've been very clever getting in with only 1 second to go, Derek, with interviewing the secretary starting now.
She draws very close to my table.
I should explain for anybody who doesn't know the game too well, whoever is speaking when the 60 seconds is up, and that's denoted by the whistle, gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Derek Nimmo who, of course, has got the lead at the end of the first round. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the second round for us? You haven't spoken yet, have you?
No, I can't wait.
Oh, good. What to write on holiday postcards? That is the subject, Kenneth. 60 seconds of that, starting now.
Most people, of course, generally deal with climate, where they are staying, what they think about the place, and things like wish you were sharing it with me. I do not do any of these things. I choose the postcard deliberately to write on the back. I recently chose one of two fearful-looking brigands, hung with bullets all over them, great bandoleros of bullets, fierce-bearded riff tribesmen, and I put on the back, I was sending it to the chairman, actually, of a very large company in London. These two tried it on with me last night. I thought that was a lot more interesting than rubbing yourself with oil and rubbing your belly in the hot sand of Saint-Tropez.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition.
Of what?
Rubbing.
Rubbing your belly in the hot sand? What better on holiday? It's lovely. You get out there doing it, I'll bet.
What better on holiday, Kenneth? But in the game, you can't do it more than once. So Clement Freud...
repetition he got me on, was it?
Yes, repetition, yes.
Right, I
too
remember that.
Too much rubbing. So, Clement Freud takes another point, and with 16 seconds left for what to write on holiday postcards, he begins now.
Words are possibly the best things to write on a holiday postcard. Often these words with...
Geraldine Jones, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was.
Yes,
I think he hesitated because he repeated the word words, and he spotted it before anybody else. So there we are. There are 8.5 seconds left for you, Geraldine, with the subject starting now.
I always find something to write on my holiday postcards.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition, if you always find something.
Yes, but I don't think that is entirely fair. No, I mean, she must... you're just twisting words, I think, there, Clement. No, I'm with Geraldine Jones. She has another point. She has 6 seconds left, starting now.
The messages are invariably very boring for the people you're sending the cards to, so I write to the postman and put as much...
As Geraldine Jones is speaking then, when the whistle went, she gains an extra point, and she has taken a lead of 1 at the end of the second round. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the third round? And the subject is sad films. And you begin now.
The first sad film was shown on the 14th of August 1921 in a small cinema off Wardour Street. The Southern Armenian Documentary Film Company, or Sad Films Inc. as they're known in America, produced the film to expose to the world at large the atrocities being committed upon the Armenian population by the Turks during the 1914-18 war, just soon afterwards. You know, these atrocities are not generally known. It's not generally realized until the sad films...
Geraldine Jones, you challenge. Why?
Repetition.
Of what?
Generally known, generally known.
Now, I would have let you have atrocities. We had a repetition of atrocities, but generally known, you cannot just have little phrases like that. So I think that's a little bit unfair. Otherwise, you would have them for ands and nuts and buts and ifs. So, Derek, I'm still with you. 32 seconds left for sad films, starting now.
The director of the film, Kleyevich Naparovich, wanted...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition.
Of what?
2 bitches. If you've got to make up unlikely names, you really avoid that sort of...
All right, I'll tell you what I do. There were 2 separate names, they both ended in Vitch. I will give you a bonus point, a 1 point for cleverness, Clement, and I leave the subject with Derek Nimmo, who continues for the next 27 seconds, starting now.
I didn't see the film myself until 1958, and I remember sitting in the cinema seat crying.
Geraldine, you challenge. Hesitation, Geraldine, you have another point.
It was emotion. I said crying. It was emotion.
It was an emotional hesitation. So Geraldine has a point. She has 23 seconds left, starting now.
I always go to see sad films on my own because I invariably cry all the way through, and this means that my face becomes red and swollen and my eyes go bloodshot. It's only fun.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation?
No, there was no hesitation. No. She was doing magnificently.
Sounded to both of us.
Yes, I definitely got a hint of hesitation, yes. I think.
Just because you two sit the same side of the...
Because I love him, that's right. My friend is stuck by me through thick and thin.
At last it has come out.
Yes.
Geraldine, we are now back with you on the subject of sad films. You have gained another point. You have 13 seconds left, starting now.
Sometimes I've been thrown out of the cinema during sad films.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of cinema.
Oh, yes, we've had a lot of cinema. You're quite right, yes.
I haven't used the word once.
But cinema has been used a great number of times in this particular round. So, Derek Nimmo, you have 10.5 seconds for sad films, starting now.
I sat there with tears streaming down my face. I was terribly upset.
Kenneth Williams, why do you
repetition. He said the tears streaming down his face before.
No, he didn't actually, but Geraldine did. So
that's repetition. Yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you. Yeah, it's very good of you to point that out.
So, Kenneth Williams, you've got your first point in this
Thank you. Yes, nice. Have I leapt into the lead?
Not quite, but you have 7.5 seconds for sad films, starting now.
Well, the sad films are known as weepies, and I've done a lot of them because I used to go to all those early Hollywood ones where the women wore the I'm at a disadvantage because I've got a creaking chair. I don't know if you're picking it up at all. I don't want you to think it's anything else.
Kenneth, are you still continuing talking about sad films?
Oh, I was just explaining.
Oh, I see. Because we've actually finished now. You've gained 2 points. Right. We've got to the next round, and Geraldine Jones, at the end of that round, has a slight lead over Derek Nimmo, and Geraldine begins the next round, and the subject is Charles I. Would you try and talk for 60 seconds on that subject, Geraldine, starting now?
Charles I was a very strange gentleman because according to a most...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Because it wasn't strange at all. It's deviation. He was the King of England. There's nothing strange about that.
You can still be King of England and be strange. In fact, I think if you study your history books, you'll find there's been some very strange kings on the English throne.
Nonsense, he was born
I
to be the king.
disagree, Kenneth, and I'm the one who has to decide, so I'm going to stand by my decision.
All right, then you've got to say exactly what about him is strange. If you're going to support that contention...
I'm going to let Geraldine Jones say what about him is strange.
Oh, she'll take hours.
56 seconds will do, Geraldine, and you continue now.
According to a portrait of him, he has 3 faces, which I think is strange. On the other...
Kenneth Williams,
this is deviation, too. The portrait does not depict him with 3 faces. The portrait simply shows him as a Van Dyke, or the three sides of him, that's all. It doesn't show him with 3 faces. She's inferring that it's one head with 3 faces on the one head. It's rubbish. It's deviation.
I'm going to put this to the audience. I'm not going to come in the middle of this. Do you agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge? And if you agree with it, will you please cheer? If you disagree, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? I don't know. You messed it up. I'm going to decide the cheers had it. We're going to find out what you think about Charles I with an extra point and with 52 seconds left starting now.
Charles I was the most remarkable king this country ever had, and, of course, he has left us with the most appalling sense of guilt ever since, because it was one of the occasions in this country when we all indulged in regicide, which is evil and wrong and should never have occurred. If I'd been there, I'd have shouted out, "Stop! Ho!" I cry. "Oh, this must not happen. What are you doing? Think. Let children shall cry out upon you, woe!"
Whoa! Your woe came in at the right moment. Clement Freud has challenged you. Why?
Repetition.
Of what?
Think.
Think. And more things as
more
well. Right.
also.
Well, Clement Freud, will you take up Charles I for another 30 seconds, starting now?
Charles I was a very ordinary king until he was executed in 1600.
Derek Nimmo, you challenged.
Well, he's not ordinary. It's already been established he's either strange or extraordinary, but he certainly can't be ordinary.
It was overruled.
It is not...
There's deviation.
I must explain to our listeners that laughter was not caused by Derek Nimmo's challenge, by the fact that Kenneth Williams has just taken off his shoes.
Well, my feet swell. Very bad for me.
Well, apparently Charles I always has this effect on him. They go to his feet and not his head. But we don't think, Derek Nimmo, back to the subject, that anything has been firmly established about Charles I in this particular round. So I'm still with Clement Freud, who has another point. He has 25 seconds left, starting now.
Having succeeded James I,
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Because he must make it clear that he wasn't just James I. You see, he's James VI of Scotland as well.
He was still James I of England.
Oh, well, you're right, of course.
Yes.
He's very fair. He's fair.
So Clement Freud has another point, and he has 23 seconds left for Charles I, starting now.
He ruled England for 39 years before he was executed and lost his head at the Tower of London, which gave rise to a...
Kenneth, you challenged again.
Well, he didn't lose his head at the Tower of London at all. He was executed in Whitehall, outside the Inigo Jones banqueting hall.
You're quite right, Kenneth Williams.
During the
Kenneth
banquet.
Williams today showing a new side of his personality, the historian and also the steward.
And the voyeur.
And the man who works better without his shoes on. Tell me, Kenneth, do you always drink to the king across the water when you raise your glass?
Never. I've got no time for all that rubbish. Once the line was established, I believe we should stick to it.
All right,
well,
let's
don't
stick to
believe in
this line
phallic
now, and you carry on with Charles I for 14 seconds, starting now.
Well, one of the most gracious things I think that he said was on the scaffold when the bishop said, "How do you feel?" or something to that effect. And he said, "I go from a corrupt world to an incorruptible one where there will be no more."
Well, Kenneth Williams' knowledge of history has brought him up with the others, and they're all now neck and neck. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is flat hunting, and please begin now.
Essex is possibly the best county for doing this, but all you need is a terrain without hills or mountains, without undue depression, and a fair amount of game such as grouse, hare, buffalo, tigers, rabbit.
Kenneth, is why you would challenge.
Repetition endless, the list of animals we're none the least interested in.
Yes, now I think we've got to establish one thing. If you go on, you can have a list of anything and call it repetition. But unless you actually repeat the word, I don't think within this game we're ever going to get anywhere if we call
That's
that
true. Well, you've got to have the rules. You've got to have rules. You can't get on without them. That's quite true.
So I'm not going to give any points for that. I'm going to ask Clement Freud to continue with 44 seconds left, starting now.
Horses, cows, chickens, bantams, worms,
Kenneth Williams, why
deviation, it's all boring.
It's got nothing to do with flat.
I'm always boring.
Nothing to do with flat hunting. It's deviation, you see.
I'm always boring. That's
Well,
not deviation.
In this game it could be, but Kenneth Williams on this occasion has a point. He has 37 seconds left, starting now.
Well, of course, you've got to find your district, and having done that, you want to find the compatible.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of find.
Yes.
Yes,
good,
it is true.
Good.
Well, a very good point, I thought, actually.
It is trivial.
Trivial, I'll grant
And the
that,
next trivial point, I'm not going to award a point to.
Quite right.
So that's the last trivial person. That's the last trivial point I give to a trivial challenge. Derek Nimmo, 34 seconds, starting now.
I look down the more popular newspapers, and there I see a desirable little residence to let. So I go round, knock at the door, and I say, "Hello, how are you today?" They say, "Do come in, Mr. Nimmo." And I say, "How nice of you to know my name." And they said, "You've got it written in front of you." And I said, "How clever of you to read." And so in I go, and I say, "May I see the bathroom?" I look round the bathroom. Absolutely beautiful, immaculate, lovely lavatory, lovely bath.
Clement Freud.
Three baths.
Three what?
Bathroom, bath.
Very well. All right, Clement Freud. 15 seconds for Fritz hunting.
Bathroom. Lovely bath. Lovely bathroom. Lovely lavatory.
May I see the bath, first of all? So that
Look, we're not going to have
dear.
any argument between us. Clement Freud has 15 seconds left for flat hunting, starting now.
Many people spend an awful lot of time searching for accommodation, which is often advertised in shop windows, especially in the Knightsbridge and Bayswater districts, where the unfortunate...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, because he's obviously advertised in the Knightsbridge area, and he's got an interest in that area.
It's got nothing to do with it. Clement Freud has another point. He has 5 seconds left for flat hunting, starting now.
Room to let, especially for two working women, is a popular phrase which you find...
Well, at the end of that round, it's still neck and neck. Only 1 point separates all of them in different degrees. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Bending people to your will. You seem to like the thought of that subject, Kenneth, so can you talk for 60 seconds on it, starting now?
The best way to do this is through affection. There are 2 ways, of course, to do it. One is to do it through fear. This is the way they accomplish it in the army and similar organizations. They make people do what they want because they frighten them. On the other hand, you can do it through affection, natural affection.
Clement Freud.
It's the third affection.
Yes, but natural affection is given to unnatural affection, isn't it?
Could you fancy
It's still a repetition of affection, I'm sorry to say. Because we
worked up and everything.
We were enjoying it so much, Kenneth. So there are 40 seconds left for you, Clement Freud, bending people to your will, starting now.
Your Will is one of the best people for bending people that I've ever come across. He was born in 43 High Street, Southwell, Suffolk, and his full name was actually Bill Cross. He bent people all over the eastern counties
Derek
of England.
Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Repetition of bending.
No, he said bent then, not bending.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. So all that happens is, I'm afraid, if you don't concentrate, Clement Freud has another point, and there are 26 seconds left, starting now.
Throughout East Anglia, there are straight and honest people who have lost their shape entirely because of this villainous gentleman who has gone around inflicting his own particular...
Derek Nimmo, you challenged it.
Hesitation after his own particular.
Yes, he was... Because he was finding another way to bend his own particular. So, Derek Nimmo, you have 14 seconds left for bending people to your will, starting now.
Every time I make a will, I go into my sister's office and I get 48 people all round the desk, and I say...
Kenneth Williams, why
Deviation is now talking about making a will. We were talking about bending to the will.
Bending people to your will.
They're just going to bend, if you'll give them a moment. I got them in a circle round it, you see.
And they're all going to bend into your will.
Bending people to your will.
Oh, that's a very clever way, Derek Nimmo. So you have 9 seconds left. Another point to you starting now.
This large group of people are foregathered. I say the word of command. 1, 2, 3, down they go. I say, when they're all on the ground, you see, looking at it, I go round. Oh.
Well, at the end of that round, Derek Nimmo has taken a very decided lead over Clement Freud, who is leading Geraldine Jones and Kenneth Williams, who are in third place. Geraldine Jones, will you begin the next round? Equal pay for women, and will you begin now?
The great myth about equal pay for women is that women do equal work. It is absolutely impossible for a woman to do any job in precisely the same way as a man, and therefore the whole myth of how much she should be paid should be exploded here and now. In fact, of course, women should be paid a great deal more for anything they do, especially for those jobs that only they do. And to try and drag their salaries down to those which men have suffered for centuries is folly, and I think very retrogressive and reactionary. When I get a job which hasn't yet happened to me, I don't expect to be paid as little as men. I expect to be paid far, far more. And I hope...
Kenneth Williams.
Far.
Kenneth Williams, you have a point, and you have 24 seconds for equal pay for women starting now.
This is a ludicrous idea. Everyone knows that the men are the prime movers of this world. All the great discoveries, Copernicus, Galileo, men, all of them. Women are a load of rubbish. No!
He's talking about men, not women, isn't he? Deviation, you say?
No. If you'd had him for a repetition of men, I would have agreed. You've got, in order to talk equal pay for women...
all the great...
We have already had a comparison with the pay of men, so I think I must keep with Kenneth Williams.
Oh, a wise chairman, wise. Wise man. Yes.
12 seconds for equal pay for women starting now.
It is a ludicrous idea that they should have equal pay because they do not and cannot by their very nature put in the hours that men put in.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition.
Of what?
Men.
All right. There are 3 seconds left. Equal pay for women, Clement Freud, starting now.
This is the most admirable thing, and I'm absolutely entirely...
Well, at the end of that round, Clement Freud is in second place,
Oh.
just in front of Geraldine Jones and Kenneth Williams, who are equal in third place, and Derek Nimmo is still in the lead. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? Things to say to people on first acquaintance. Can you try and talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, they usually say things like, what sort of work are you in, or what sort of things do you do? And I invariably launch into a brief, encapsulated story of my career since it began. I generally say, well, you know, I first decided I would be a draftsman. I felt that was my natural bent. I felt it was my forte, in fact. And then I say, no, I changed my mind because I realized that art was calling me. The muse had lit upon my shoulder. And so I decided to go into... I hesitate.
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, because Kenneth Williams also told you. And there are another point to you. 22 seconds there. Things to say to people on first acquaintance, starting now.
I never get people's names when I first meet them, so I tend to say to them, I didn't quite catch what you were called. And they say, my name is...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of names.
Derek Nimmo, you have another point.
Most people have 2 names. I mean...
I'm afraid you can't get out of it that way, Clement. 13 seconds left. Things to say to people on first acquaintance, Derek, starting now.
What I say is, have you interviewed a secretary? Or what do you write on holiday postcards? Do you like sad films? What about Charles I? Do you like making a speech? What about equal pay for women? Do you like flat hunting?
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
No, he was in full flood there. He was trying to search for the next subject, I think. There's 1 second left for you, Derek Nimmo. Things to say to people on first acquaintance, starting now.
What all fruit, how are you?
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular game of Just a Minute.
Oh, what a shame. I really didn't get much out at all.
No, but you did quite well. And in spite of that last challenge, Derek Nimmo would still have been the winner. By a clear 4 or 5 points, he is undoubtedly this week's winner. Clement Freud was second, and Geraldine Jones and Kenneth Williams were equal in third place, a little way behind Clement. Well, that's all that we have time for, as I said before. We hope you've enjoyed this particular game of Just a Minute. From all of us here, goodbye. Goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Fenella Fielding in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to this edition of Just a Minute. And we welcome to the show for the very first time you just heard to represent the ladies, Fenella Fielding. And the three men are just the same. The rules have remained the same, and we try to play them just the same. I'm going to ask each one of them to speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way. And if one of the others thinks they are guilty of this crime when they're speaking, they may press a buzzer which is in front of them, and if I uphold their challenge, they will take over that subject and gain a point. If I don't uphold the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes telling us 60 seconds up will gain an extra point. That is the way we score, that is the way we play, and Kenneth Williams, will you begin this particular show? Something that I'm sure you're well fitted to talk about, Kenneth. Receiving compliments. Can you talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Well, it has been said that it is more difficult to receive than to give, and where compliments are concerned, I think this is particularly true. Because one must assume an air of gratification, one must also assume... Oh, I've said twice.
Derek Nimmo, you pressed your buzzer, you've challenged why?
Self-confessed hesitation.
A self-confessed hesitation. Kenneth, you must keep going. They might even not notice it.
It was repetition, which I admitted, Your Grace.
Oh, so, well, that's all right. So you have a point. I don't go... No, it was not a hesitation. It was a repetition. So Kenneth Williams keeps the subject, and there are 42 seconds left, starting now.
But when the tribute is paid to one immediately...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge this time.
Repetition, 1 and 1 make 2.
He did repeat 1 twice, so you have a point. Derek Nimmo, you take over the subject. There are 37 seconds left for receiving compliments, starting now.
The first compliment that I received was when I was sitting on Coniston Wharton, a little rowing boat, and a man came alongside me in a sailing dinghy, one Hornet it was called. It was a rather nice class of sailing dinghy. He came alongside and he said to me, "What ho, what a jolly fellow you are." I said, "How civil of you to say that. How terribly kind. May I return a compliment to you?" And he said, "No, you're only receiving them today." And I said, "So true, so true." Which is repetition.
Clement Freud has challenged. Repetition, not so true. So Clement Freud gains a point and he takes over the subject. 14 seconds left, receiving compliments, starting now.
This is something, Andree.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation, I don't believe he's ever received a compliment.
Well, it's a very good laugh and a very good challenge. But all that happens is Clement Freud has another point. He has 12 seconds for receiving compliments, starting now.
This is something that Derek Nimmo thinks I very seldom receive, and in many ways he is right.
Derek Nimmo, you're challenging. Why?
I reinstate my previous challenge. He said I was right.
That is definitely a very clever challenge. So, Derek Nimmo, you take over the subject, and there are 7 seconds for receiving compliments, Derek, starting now.
The second time was in the Mall one Tuesday morning at 7:30. I was up very early, and this fellow came alongside me, and he said, "Hello."
As Derek Nimmo was speaking at the end of that round, he gets the extra point.
Finds oneself talking rubbish, absolute rubbish.
It's terribly interesting that Derek Nimmo has been in 3 complete series of this show, and only now does he realize he's talking complete rubbish. It's probably never too late, Derek. Anyway, you gained a bonus point for speaking as the whistle went, and he gives you the lead at the end of the first round. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is odds and ends. We will talk for 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
Odds and ends is a name given to numbers like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and to words that come at the termination of a sentence, a book, a page, possibly even a chapter. But more often than not, by odds and ends, people mean some conglomeration of articles or materials or instances for which they can find no other collective name. I have, for instance, heard my mother say, "Where did I put the odds and ends?" at which my father hit her. This was an embarrassing occasion. But more than yes, thank you.
Derek Nimmo, challenge, right? Yes, Derek Nimmo has a justified point with 21 seconds left for odds and ends. Derek, starting now.
I have a little cupboard underneath the stairs in which I keep my odds and ends. There's a screwdriver there, a thimble, a button, a little tiny straw object which I've never been able to identify, although I've looked in all sorts of textbooks. There's a collar belonging to a vicar who died 4 years ago in Tunbridge Wells. There's a straw hat with a feather on it.
Kenneth Williams, why do challenge? Why?
Repetition. We've had about 7 theirs. There's this, there's that, there's the other. There's all those repetitions.
Yeah, well, all I can say, Kenneth, is we've had lots of theirs throughout the series, and we've never challenged for theirs before, so I think it would be only fair to say no points. Continue with Derek Nimmo. 3 seconds for odds and ends, starting now.
There's a pub in Shortly Avenue is full of odds, and sometimes few ends.
As Derek was speaking, when the whistle went, he gains yet another bonus point. And Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My worst fault. Talk on the subject you can. 60 seconds, starting now.
In the 4th round of the Cup at Wimbledon in 1959, I happened to be playing opposite Rod Laver.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
He is faultless.
If you were to say that Derek Nimmo did not play against Rod Laver in the 4th round of the Cup, I would have given you deviation. But I cannot give it to you on that score, because, therefore, Derek Nimmo has another point, and there are 47 seconds for my worst fault, starting now.
The decision was rather interesting, actually. It was 2 sets all, and 5-3 in my favour in the final game. What happened was, I threw the ball up terribly high in the air, smashed it hard with my racket, and it went over the net, and just skimmed through the white dust. And you know that...
Kenneth Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
If it hits the white dust, it's not a fault.
No, that's perfectly
It
correct.
picks up the chalk.
Extremely clever, no. The ball's in. That's one of those brilliant challenges.
I wouldn't mind if he wasn't right.
And so, Clement Freud, you have another point. You take the subject over. 35 seconds left for my worst fault, starting now.
My worst fault is generosity, kindness, and being nice to Derek Nimmo. Many people ask me, why do you continue with this charming, witful, and intelligent progression of...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge why?
Hesitation.
Yes, he couldn't go on. He got so carried away with this misplaced thought. So, Derek Nimmo, you have another point, and there are 20 seconds left for my worst fault, starting now.
My worst fault, really, is my underlying tremendous...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation. He's already said that his worst fault happened at Wimbledon.
So, Clement Freud has the subject, and there are 17 seconds for my worst fault, Clement, starting now.
Hitting old ladies.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
He's already established his worst fault as being nice to me.
That's quite correct. You get him on exactly the same thing that you got you on. So... Derek, you have the subject back. Sometimes it pays to lose because you get the subject back with another point. So 15 seconds for my worst fault. Derek, starting now.
So I tied my plimsolls on rather heavily, really, and got hold of the racket very firmly in my right hand, and I got hold of this spherical object which I play the game with. I threw it extraordinarily high here, and it soared up above the clouds, and the bird sang.
Repetition. He's already thrown it.
He's already thrown it high. So Clement Freud has my worst fault. 2 seconds left, starting now.
Is this really your worst fault?
The end of that round, Clement Freud is 1 point behind Derek Nimmo. Kenneth Williams is in 3rd place, and Fenella has yet to score. But Fenella, you begin the next round. Here's this subject: the advantages of being female. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, the advantages are many. For one thing, the most marvellous part is that you can cry in the pictures without anybody thinking you're effeminate. And then, you know, you can have babies. And although you can have these things, and men are so strong, they're so strong, that they can carry heavy cases for us, which is very, very nice. And I like that. Awesome.
Derek, you've challenged. Why?
Everything.
I agree, but as you can't challenge for everything, I'm going to let Fenella carry on, and we'll see how she goes, because we're enjoying it. Fenella, there are 25 seconds for you to continue with the advantages of being female, starting now.
Well, for one thing, as we're all supposed to be rather dim-witted...
Derek, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Oh, no, I was timing.
This time, I'm afraid I have to give it to the most ungallant of the three, Derek Nimmo.
Oh, how right.
So,
well, it seems to me there's no advantage of being female at all.
In this game, none at all. I must say that to Fenella. 20 seconds for Derek Nimmo to continue with the subject of the advantages of being female, starting now.
There are many advantages I find in being female, particularly when I go on buses, because I find that gentlemen stand up and let me sit down. I notice that when I go into a hairdresser's, I'm always given preference over Clement Freud.
Fenella Fielding, why do you challenge?
Forgive me, but isn't this deviation?
Very devious, Fenella.
Very unpleasant.
So you take the subject back. And there are 7 seconds left for the advantages of being female, starting now.
Well, you don't have to play any rough games like men do. You don't have to play football or anything like that.
Well, as Fenella somehow or other was still managing to be speaking when the whistle went, she gained some points and puts her actually a little in front of Kenneth Williams. But Derek Nimmo still in the lead in front of Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject is bashfulness. Can you talk to us about bashfulness for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is to do, of course, with a lack of confidence and, of course, this lack of composure, if that is the way one would have it, can lead to a certain arch demeanor which many people do interpret as bashful. But, of course, it is merely a word nomenclature, semantics, call it what you will, and really it isn't correct. It's simply a lack of ability in those circumstances. I myself, when very young, was called upon to recite break, break, break on my
Clement Freud is challenged. And Derek Kenneth is just about to break Clement Freud, who's sitting beside him. So there you chose the wrong poem, Kenneth, to recite. So Clement has another point, and there are 17 seconds for bashfulness. Clement Freud, starting now.
Fullness was one of the most unpleasant people at my boarding school, and whenever there was a wet Tuesday night, we used to get together to bash him. 3 of us would hold him, 2 by the legs and 1 by the arm, and it was called Bashfulness on a Tuesday afternoon, one of the most happy sports in Boston.
As Clement Freud was speaking, as the whistle went, he got a point, and a well-deserved point, because I must tell the listeners that all throughout that, Kenneth was feeling so upset at me having lost the subject that he was sticking his tongue out at Clement. So, at the end of that round, Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo are in the lead, equal. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. When I was 7. A charming subject, Clement. Will you discourse for 60 seconds on it, starting now?
When I was 7, we lived on an island in the Baltic Sea, and I had my first really unhappy experience. The publican on this particular place where we lived had hiccups terribly badly for 3 days.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hiccups, repetition.
An extraordinarily clever challenge, but as it doesn't sort of come within the context of the game, I give you a bonus point, Derek. Believe the subject with Clement Freud. 46 seconds. When I was 7, Clement, starting now.
after which his nose bled. It bled for many days.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
His nose bled. It bled.
Yes, repetition of bled. 47
That's
seconds.
the point about noses bleeding.
Yes, but it's also repetitious, so there we are. Derek, you have the subject, 47 seconds. When I was 7, starting now.
When I was 7, I was evacuated to Cartmel Fell in the Lake District. It was at the height of the bombing in Liverpool, and my father and my mummy thought it would be safer for me there, up there amongst the water and the lakes, and there I went.
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
There.
There, yes. And I didn't let Kenneth Williams have there some other time. When was that, Kenneth?
I can't remember, but you're a very good chairman, and I certainly will be the last person to find fault. There have got to be rules. You've got to have rules. Everyone should stick to the rules. I mean...
There speaks a true sportsman.
Yes, you've got to have rules, haven't you?
Yes. So, Clement Freud, you have a point, and there are 28 seconds for when I was 7, starting now.
This poor man had lost so many red and white corpuscles that in the end he died, and as we lived on an island, a steamer arrived and a coffin was discharged, and
hesitation, but it's also terribly depressing, isn't it? Why does he always bring up these awful, morbid, sordid stories? When he was 7, there should have been a little happiness and light in his life, not all these corpses and bodies and the Baltic and steamers. Horrible.
I don't know whether the audience are applauding because they agree or just applauding your magnificent performance, Derek. But to go back to the game, which we left about a minute ago, I give you a point for hesitation. It was more than a hesitation, it was a full stop. There we are, 10 seconds now for when I was 7, Derek, starting now.
And in this agricultural building, there were cows and sheep and hens and ducks, and every morning I used to go and feed.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
4 ands.
Well, look, all right, Kenneth, I'll give you the benefit. Once before you challenge on there, I'll give it to you this time, as you're trailing a little. All right, so 4 ands, but not again. We can't have and again after this. You have the subject now. 3 seconds left. When I was 7, Kenneth, starting now.
When I was 7, my photograph was taken, and everyone agreed it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen in the term of...
Well, as Kenneth was speaking, when the whistle went, he gains another point, and he's now equal in 3rd place behind Derek and Nimmo and Clement Freud, who are in the lead almost equal, 1 point separating them. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My handicap. A subject which you can enlarge on, I'm sure, any way you wish, starting now, 60 seconds.
Well, of course, I always take it with me to race meetings, really. I keep it in my back pocket, and if it's raining, I bring this tremendously handy cap out and put it on my head. It's waterproof. I have other ones, actually, because, you know, I have a tremendous tendency, if I'm not thinking, to go, ha, 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 how are you?
Clement Freud, you repetition, yes. You should find a different way to laugh in this game,
This
Derek.
is my handicap. How can I talk about it without illustrating it?
Well, your handicap has given Clement Freud a point, and there are 41 seconds left for my handicap, Clement, starting now.
My handicap in golf is 27. This is achieved by taking the par score for an average golf course and adding to it the number of strokes over this total which one achieves on a normal round. I usually start on the first hole with a driver or possibly a spoon and try to...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Yeah, he's not talking about his handicap now. He's talking about how to play golf.
No.
Oh.
Because he was talking about his handicap and he was explaining it, and if you play golf, I think you'll find that he was going to explain it quite well. 23 seconds left, Clement, for my handicap, starting now.
Having teed up, I use the club to strike the ball, which invariably lands in a bunker because I am a handicap 27 player. Where I not...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge one.
Repetition of 27.
Yes, that is perfectly correct. Derek Nimmo has a point. There are 13 and a half seconds left for Derek on my handicap, starting now.
It's caused me great unhappiness in my life. I do feel it's awfully mean when people challenge me and cause me to be ridiculed.
Clement Freud, you've challenged on his handicap again. Yes, indeed. Though, Clement, you take it back. 9 seconds, my handicap, starting now.
There are other golfers who find...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge
Repetition of golfers.
Yes, we've had golfers before. 6 seconds for my handicap, Derek, starting now.
And sometimes it brings tears to my eyes when people come up to me and say, oh, how can Freud be so cruel?
This game's developing to somewhat of a needle match between Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud, who have only 2 points separating them. Derek Nimmo, this time a little in the lead. Fenella and Kenneth are trailing somewhat. Fenella, will you try and begin... will you begin the next round for us, my love? The subject, surely a delightful one for you, soirees.
Soirees.
Yes, will you try and talk for 60 seconds starting now?
Soirees were invented at the beginning of time. But as they were French, they didn't get to this country till 1066. When we were invaded, we instantly took up this charming occupation, Gallic though it be. And since then, soirees of every sort have swelled the social scene. During a soiree, people arrive dripping with every possible kind of personal decoration. They imbibe every kind and color of alcohol, or perhaps I shouldn't say that. On a family program, they eat sandwiches cut into triangles, and bridge rolls, and they do dance to the record player or the tape recorder and have a simply lovely time being terribly witty.
Well, that was absolutely enchanting. I'm sure we all want to go to one of Fenella's soirees. I must say, in fairness, I do think the three men were extremely kind, not challenging for the many hundreds of errors that she made. But we loved it so much.
Errors? What errors?
You said the decorations were dripping.
Well, it depends who you know.
Well, all I put it this way, Fenella, and nobody has got so few words into 60 seconds before. But you did it very well at a very even tempo, and you get a bonus point for not being interrupted throughout your 60 seconds.
Oh, gosh, good.
Oh, gosh, good, says Fenella, so she's back in the game. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject is something which I'm sure you can apply to this game. What I find unpardonable. Will you talk about that subject? 60 seconds starting now.
I find unpardonable injustice, and especially when it is manifest, when it is seen to be exactly that, the thing I've just described. Because surely all of us yearn in this world for a fair hearing. Surely we've all got the right to have a fair... Oh, such a right!
Fenella has challenged for the first time. Why?
Well, I think it was repetition.
It was repetition. So, Fenella, you take
fine
over...
one to talk.
So, Fenella, you take over the subject. You've gained another point, and there are 41 seconds for what I find unpardonable starting now.
What I find unpardonable is people simply not falling at my feet, rushing over the footlights, and telling me how absolutely marvelous I am every single minute of the day. That is what we all need in this world of ours today, as I'm sure Kenneth will agree. And Clement.
Clement, why are you challenged?
And if people don't do this, if they don't like it, I'm challenging myself. I want to know what you mean.
It's probably the safest way to get out of it. Do carry on, Fenella. Another 19 seconds left for what I find unpardonable. Starting now. Clement, you challenge. Or shall I go back to Clement Freud's challenge of about 5 minutes ago?
It was the same thing. Been hesitation.
Well, as you got in first, Clement, I must be fair and give it to you. You have a point, and there are now 22 seconds left for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
The things that I find most unpardonable are hesitation, repetition, and deviation.
Vanilla Fillion, why have you challenged?
Hesitation, repetition, and deviation.
I would like to be able to give you 3 points, Vanilla, but...
Three!
I can only give you 1, I'm afraid. 16 seconds left, Vanilla Fielding, for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
Well, what I find unpardonable is brutality to me by Clement Freud, when here I am exposed to...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge, why?
Deviation. She's exposed herself.
Well, actually, if you had said to me deviation for exposure, I would have said, yes, that is devious. But she has not exposed herself, she only said it.
You're not sitting where I'm sitting.
As I'm not sitting where you're sitting, Derek, all I can do is to give Penelope Fielding another point and say there are 8 seconds left, Penelope, for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
Well, I think that was an unpardonable interruption on Derek Nimmo's part.
Derek, you challenge why?
Repetition of Derek Nimmo.
Yes, indeed, definitely. We can't have too much of Derek Nimmo. So, you have a point, Derek, and 3 seconds for what I find unpardonable starting now.
Home secretaries, when they say, I won't pardon that fellow.
Well, the final result, I think, in the circumstances, was very fair. Fenella Fielding was in third place, just in front of Kenneth Williams, and considerably in front of them both were Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. And Derek Nimmo has beaten Clement Freud by 3 points, and so we say this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye. Goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.